but she just moved from 18 by 8 and is trying to make it like as an independent person.
Oh, nice, man.
But yeah, they were stealing her tips.
The fuck?
Yeah.
Why?
The main manager person there was apparently like stealing her tips and stuff. And like, oh, got to make the place work. And she's like,
oh, that's
when
wage
I left.
theft.
Yeah. So she left, and then she goes, oh yeah, and then like 4 of the people left, and we suspect that the company is going to go downhill. And
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's highly illegal.
Yeah.
All right. Now, how's this light? If I put this on, is that too much?
That's fine. Listen, I live the lifestyle. Man, what is it? I was in 12 plays in high school. So the light on me, I was like, yeah, this is my life. I like this.
12 plays?
Yeah, 12 plays. I played everything from the voice of God to Satan himself. It was very fun.
Is 12 plays like is that a play?
No. It is, it's, 12 different plays.
Oh, 12 plays. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I totally get that.
Yeah. And then I was the bully in The Devil in Sherman Marsh, which was where I was like, haha, nerd. And then I shoved a kid who ended up coming out as gay across stage.
Ah, okay.
And so there's some problematic pieces there, some would say.
Let's see how we look here. This isn't bad. This is too focused on me.
I'm also scooting back a little. There we go.
There we go. Hey. This one. Maybe a little lower. Have you ever worked with these cameras?
No. I do know that a lot of the professionals do.
So basically, the way I got this camera was I knew I needed like an HD camera for this, but I had no idea which one to get. So I just looked up which one David Dobrik used.
Okay.
Do you know him?
No.
He's a YouTuber. He's one of the top YouTubers, and I was like, give me whatever fucking he had. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so I did zero thought on this.
I mean, that's fine.
Apparently, it only records like 30 minutes.
Oh,
So if I jump up mid podcast, that's what I'm doing.
perfectly fine.
I'm doing another clip.
That's okay. It's also pretty stupid.
It is super stupid, and apparently it's only because of like how they policy cameras. So if this comes from like Japan, can't be more than 30 minutes for some reason.
But if it wasn't,
Maybe if it was like American made, it would be unlimited, as it should be. But
like all things American,
yeah,
unlimited shrimp spread, anything.
and it might turn. Yeah, autofocus is on. I won't get too picky with it. There we go. This is on. I'll grab this live. And then as a third camera, I'll use my phone. I've done a little bit of learning so far with these episodes. It's best to have it back-facing camera and to the side.
Nice. Yeah, I figured the back-facing camera part.
Oh,
That's your higher quality one.
Is that too much?
No, you're fine.
All right.
They did a whole thing of like a side-by-side for like this bodybuilder guy, and for like improved lighting, tan, recent like pump, and then posture. Those were the 4 variables he changed, and then he did like side-by-sides for each and every single one of the variables, and just the wild difference that good lighting makes.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, especially with bodybuilders too, when they like really darken their skin with the
Yes.
tan, like the way that reflects off of their muscles is completely different.
Yeah.
So
I knew a girl that like she was muscular, but like you wouldn't think anything of it. And then like she put the bodybuilder stuff on and boom, suddenly just a world of difference.
Everything comes out. My ex-girlfriend, she used to be a bodybuilder. So
I knew you guys. So I knew her. I knew you while you were dating her. And then suddenly like I was talking to Raphael and he said you guys had broken up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, there was a world of hurt there.
I can tell. Raphael's hot take was he's like, I don't think Eric's over that yet.
No. I mean, if we're going to be completely honest, I don't think I'll ever be
Really?
completely over that one, yeah. But
yeah, you seem very committed to her. And the pull that I got just in our conversations was that she was not as committed to you in that aspect. But it seems like you had like high level, like this is the person I want to be with.
Right. That's a good take on it. That's a really good take because like almost immediately I was like, I want to be like from the first moment I met her, I was like, I want to be in a relationship with this woman. She's awesome. And she was like, I don't know about relationships. And like, so from the get-go, it was like that. And she kind of came around and was like, okay, like I could do this. She got this place. We moved in together. And it was amazing for a few years.
Yeah.
It really was. Best relationship I've ever had. But yeah, it is what it is.
I feel like maybe the sell wears off, or you have to perpetually keep selling the relationship concept.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely it. If you're not giving it your all 100% of the time, it just...
Well, that doesn't give you the ability to relax and breathe and be with this person.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Man. It's hard to do and feel at the same time. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I've been doing so much that lately that like I haven't really given myself the chance to feel the fact that like, hey, I'm leaving Missouri forever. Like I said bye, just so many people. Yeah. But I know the second like I take a second and breathe, it's gonna be like, shit.
Oh, man, this is happening, isn't it? Just like it all hits you at once.
Yeah.
I'm sure leaving Cape Girardeau was kind of like that too. This is just a backup camera.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, the resolution,
that's not bad.
It doesn't look bad, but when you play it back, it's like a Nikon camera.
It might be one of those things that like, you know, the display is excellent, but the camera itself.
Yeah. And I've had so many audio projects go by the wayside. I have a backup mic over there.
Oh, okay.
It's just going to be chilling. But I'm going to hit record and then we could just mess around for right now. We'll check levels. Check 1 2.
Hello. Check 1 2.
Why does yours seem quieter?
Hello. It almost seems like it's not picking it up.
Huh. How does it sound in headphones? Yours will play your microphone.
Hello.
Yo. Mine's just like a tiny bit louder.
Yeah, I can barely hear the difference. I think most of what I'm hearing is like just me normally.
Yeah.
I wonder
if I pan it slightly over to your direction. How does that sound? Check.
Hello. This is Eric. The other one. No, man. It's like it's not doing anything. So it seems like we're on. It seems like we are connected.
Volume's up. 1 2. 1 2 1 2.
Make sure that this is fully connected.
Totally.
Looks good. Are you able to pull from... Yeah, distinct difference. Oh, that one seemed to have it.
Okay. Try it now.
Hello. That's a world of difference.
That's a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yo. Mine might be a little quiet. Is mine a little quieter now? No.
Hello. This is Eric. What's going on?
This is also Eric. How you doing?
Hello, Eric and Eric.
So I am the. Am I left or right, Eric?
Okay. Well, looks like yours is slightly louder, but
Yeah. All right. So with this current, it looks like yours is way quieter, but hearing it, it's actually
really loud.
really loud.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why that's the case, but the original settings weren't bad at all.
It might be that you have the record volume high for this one.
Maybe. All right, let's try one more time with this practice. Yo, yo, yo.
Hello, hello.
Are we at the same level?
Or much higher or lower?
What's going on?
Hey! Yeah, you can see it up top. It's doing pretty good. I even pushed the limit there a little.
Yeah, I would say, from what I'm hearing, we're at the same level here, which makes
No sense.
no sense at all.
No,
It makes no sense, but
that's not how sound works, but that's fine. But yeah, when you look at that output, like we're doing pretty good.
if you want to hear it.
Yeah. I have some audio experience. Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that sounds great.
sounds all right. I'll take it.
I can distinguish a difference in either person's volume there.
Have you ever used Logic?
No. Wait,
Yeah.
what?
This is Apple's version of a digital audio interface.
It looks like GarageBand.
It's exactly like GarageBand, but it just has additional features like auto tune and shit.
Nice. I might, because right now all my stuff I use GarageBand. I thought you were using GarageBand. Nice.
Hell yeah, dude. I almost got this laptop with Logic and Final Cut Pro included, but yeah, it's unfortunately I had to pay for them. Otherwise, I couldn't like get it as soon as I needed it. But yeah, let's hit record. I'll restart this, and I think this one's going. Let me just double check. But then we could just bleed into it, you know? Yeah, this one's started, but I'll restart it. And I'll give you an introduction beforehand. So
Yeah.
I'll record something just so I don't waste your time while I'm looking at you.
Oh, no problem. I'm in no rush.
Yeah. And then if you want to throw those on, you can. You don't have to.
I was
But
gonna say, like, what use are they gonna be me? Because I can hear you. I can hear me through them to some degree.
you can absolutely. So the way I have it set up is you can hear yourself, but you can't hear me.
Yeah.
But I can hear both myself and you.
I like that it's live, so there's no like echo delay.
Definitely.
'Cause that's what the police used to mess with people.
Really?
Yeah, there's a anti crowd dispersion tactic, like when people are chanting at riots and stuff. It's an anti-riot tool where they will echo back what's being chanted or what's being said at people, but they'll do it with like a quarter or a half second or even a full second delay.
Oh no.
So if you've ever heard yourself and you get
Yeah.
like that echo and you just can't think through it.
No,
Yeah, so
absolutely
they'll do
not.
that like through a speaker back at the crowd.
Okay, so I both hate that and love that
Yep.
because for one, Like, people have a right to protest.
Again, it's an anti-riot protest.
Okay, all right. So we'll give it
yeah.
that. It's good for riots
Yeah.
because, like, of course, you want the right to protest, but at the same time, like, that's hilarious that you can use something that we all know we're self-conscious of and use it against
Well, it's
a
that thing
crowd
where
like that.
you can't think. Like you just lose the ability to think if like what you're saying, it's like if I were to say what I'm saying, and then as I'm doing that, like what I'm saying is like coming back at me, like
Right.
and then just with that delay, it just breaks you down. If
Uh-huh.
someone's ever had you on speakerphone, it'll fuck you up.
Yeah. It's bad. It's real bad. All right. So are these mics okay? Are they feeling comfortable? Are they feeling neutral? I feel like mine's just slightly in the way.
I think mine usually hangs out right about here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just like a
usually my
fist
spot.
away.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're like, I'm just gonna lick mine.
Just straight up on it.
I used to have mine like that, but then I had my my input settings increased, and then I could have it like further away from me and still make it work.
Right. Well, these specific mics, well, this one, I don't know about that one, but this one is very sound canceling. So like it's very detailed. It'll pick up every nuance of my voice, but you need to be very close to it. Otherwise, it's just everything's gone.
I get that.
Yeah.
Nice.
That one's okay. That one I think picks up more of the room.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to use it in the way that you're using it. That is a clean foam, by the way.
That's fine. That's fine.
You're not.
I wasn't gonna lick it or nothing.
Okay. All right.
Don't worry about that.
100%. Let me take this off really quick. I was in Alpha Chi Sigma.
Yeah, I know. They tried to recruit me.
Yeah.
They tried to make me one of the founding fathers.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess
That's
you were there during that.
Yeah. The chemistry one.
Was it 2014?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And I was working like 60 hours a week at Domino's, and I was like, I don't have time to do that.
Yikes.
Yeah.
What was Domino's like?
It was actually very chill. I very much liked it. I got free pizza all the time. I drove around. I would like get paid for wild things. Like people would tip you extra money because you would show up on Friday night to a party, and a very clinically overweight man would be trying to do a cartwheel, and they're like, "Hey, Charlie's trying to do a cartwheel. We're gonna cheer him on." And I'd be like, "All right, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie," and then I get an extra $5 out of it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it was basically like Dance Monkey Dance.
It was.
Yeah.
But I have an ability to yes and people.
Yes.
Like, yeah. And so I'll be like, okay, let's do this. So anyways, and then like an Estonia man was like, do you even know where Estonia is? And I was like, yeah, I know where Estonia is. And I gave him like a country, Poland, which is like 2 countries away. Yeah. And he's like, very good. It's like some people say South America.
Yeah. That's such like an Eastern European thing too.
Yeah.
And
so I got paid more for that. But it was very, very nice. I went. I worked other jobs while doing that. Like I worked at the pharmacy. I of course taught. Yeah. So.
Well, no, it's awesome that you have that improv ability. Because I think that's one thing that actually attracts me to your personality. And
thanks, man.
I think that's why we get along in such a way, because like that process of improving, of just taking anything that's given to you and just adding to it and rolling with it, is so beneficial in life. Where did you pick that up?
Well, first and foremost, I was like taught about it, and then I was like, wow, that's hard. And so then I started listening to the podcast My Brother and Me, an advice show for the modern era, where they give comedy advice. Where they're like, hey, I showed up at this party with like, oh, it was a Halloween party, but I was the only one dressed as a druid, and everyone was in suit and ties. What should I do? And so they would take, that and try to give real advice. Like, well, you're dressed as a druid. Have you thought about turning into a bunch of bees? And then they're like, well, Griffin, do you think you could turn into a bee? And you would just hear him go, oh no, I turned into one big bee. And so, that ability to just kind of yes and I learned. And then I just started applying that because I was in the perfect environment for it. Show up to somebody's house, do a weird song and dance, and they're like, yeah, okay, here's money.
Fuck it, this is happening. Let's roll with it.
Yeah.
Do you think martial arts also aids in that process?
Martial arts is like the art of constant adjustment. Like no matter what you're doing, like you have to, specify whatever larger technique that you learn to a particular individual. So I mean, like, because we make jokes about that, like, ooh, he's given me a present, and then I choke him unconscious. Like,
right.
Where before I was like, oh, but I want to kick him. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, no,
it's like, I think it was Hoyler Gracie. It was one of the Gracies who made Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, of course. But he said Jiu-Jitsu or any martial art is just, I do this and you do that. And we do that forever. Yeah.
It's a chess game, especially the groundwork stuff. It's trying to figure out like, he's given me, this part of his leg. Well, if I wrap that, I know he's going to try to pull me in and things like that. Like this predictive nature of trying to be like, well, what has he given me and what doesn't he want me to have? And so, yeah. We were actually just doing martial arts last night. I did. That was one of the unpleasant things about the floaty system, because I have like all the hands from like gripping onto people and all that yesterday. Yeah. And then I was like, ow, this hurts. This salt, ow. So then I had to get back out.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Hands. Yeah, you're so right. I totally forgot to prepare you for that.
No, I actually, so I'd listened to I'd done a bit of pre-research as I go into no situation blind, but hadn't thought about like last night with the hand stuff.
Right.
So,
yeah, we are, of course, talking about the sensory deprivation tank. Which the last time I did it, I had just done jujitsu. So like, my entire blade of my foot was completely raw, like I had shin bruises. It was so bad. And like my entire body just burned for the first like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Which in a 75-minute float is a substantial portion.
Some would say that's a pretty sizable amount of the time.
I would say so. Yeah, it stung. But you were saying that the experience was okay.
I think much like any form of like meditation, there has to have this ability where you let go of the self, the I, the constant dialogue, this narration that we have in our minds. And I think that it's very difficult for some people to give that up. And you would have these Eastern philosophers that would be like, oh, you're too attached to the id and things like that. I actually I think, or the superego, or whichever you want to claim, I think that it is medically easier for some people to get rid of that than others. I actually knew a guy who he had this thing that I talk about, like where I can't hold just one thought in my mind, but instead diverge in several directions. And he said, I went on this drug to help with that, and suddenly I could hold just one thought in my mind, or choose to let that thought go. And it was life altering for him. It helped with his anxiety, which was initially what he took it for. And I've been trying to figure out which exact drug this is, but I have since lost contact with that person because it was a previous relationship's friend. So it's very difficult for me to be like, hey, me and this girl aren't together anymore, but I need to know what drug you took. So
yeah, how do you continue a conversation like that?
Yeah,
with a bridge that's been burned.
So difficult. Anyways, but yeah, I think that the challenge for me is to let go in that way. And so meanwhile, I was just wiggling around in there like, ooh, I can make the lights dance. And I was appreciative of like the music and stuff like that. It was relaxing. Like I walked out of the experience more relaxed, but in the kind of way that one might have from like, doing a yoga class as like a novice, or like getting a massage or something like that.
So, right. Yeah. It's a way to let go in that way. I think that's the massage is a really good likening to that. It's a very good analogy, because I feel like those are synonymous in a way. I think also if you did go through the sensory deprivation tank and then went for a massage, that would be absolutely phenomenal.
You would become
it
jello
would just,
on the floor.
yeah.
You wouldn't have bones anymore.
Just melt.
They would say Eric is boneless because he's got no bones.
No bones.
Old no
Zero
bones
bone.
Eric. That's what they call him.
No backbone.
No bones about it.
No, yeah, I was gonna ask what drug that was, but yeah, given that we don't have that information,
Such a shame.
that's
Well,
too
there's,
bad.
I mean, there's a variety of different like mood enhancing or anti-anxiety drugs, and you know, a lot that you might not become dependent on or can take as needed and things. So,
Right.
Yeah.
On that topic, do you? I shouldn't ask if you have any experience with them, because I don't know how
No,
comfortable
go
you
ahead.
are.
Yeah.
But what is your opinion on psychedelics?
Interesting. So this, weirdly enough, was a conversation that just came up yesterday with a friend of mine who's very into, as she calls it, shrooms.
Nice.
But for you, the novice listener, maybe you would refer to them as mushrooms.
Right.
Unnecessary build up to that stupid joke.
Like, I thought you were going for psilocybin or psilocin, but mushrooms.
Sometimes the thing is to subvert the expectation.
Right.
Anyways, so in my personal opinion, I think that psychedelics have a huge potential use for helping individuals with neurologically degenerative diseases, such as, I mean, everything from Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, to even something, you know, like muscular neurodegenerative diseases, like muscular sclerosis, MS,
so.
and things like that. And part of that has to do with the fact that, like, you inside of your body right now have stem cells that then begin, you know, if activated, or the cells around them are activated, can then be used in a way that mimics the cells around them. There's actually like some stem cell transplant techniques that we've been looking at using for a while now to regrow neurons, because if you insert and essentially like kind of trace the track for a neuron to grow, and you put stem cells there, they will begin to mimic the cells around them and maybe even regrow as neurons. So they have wonderful potential uses for that medically, which, I mean, pharmaceutical industries are already looking at. And if they can get, you know, FDA approval, government approval, decriminalization, things like that, then they could potentially be used in, I would say, the next 20, 30 years.
Right. I think that that's very much the case.
Now, as far as for funsies time, I personally think that, like, it is not something that I do or am going to do or really that interested in doing. I have not partaken in any particular narcotic.
Good answer.
The DARE program worked on me and me alone.
Oh, man.
And so that being said, I do support those who do participate in those things. I just
Right.
myself don't do that. But my concern is that if you are taking these drugs, you will be potentially making associations with things that are not actually present in the world, and thus getting kind of maladaptive interpretation of the world. And while that's fine in some aspects, because the world, like, fucking sucks all the time, and you know, some people might find like, oh, this gives them some insight into what maybe they themselves think of the world, what
Right.
associations they have, and gives them insights and glimpses into their self. I think that you can begin to do things very similar to what people with multiple personality disorders begin to experience, where there begin pattern recognition in the world for patterns that are not there. Which historically is actually like a very interesting topic. Individuals who have multiple personality disorders, schizophrenia in certain types of forms,
Right.
they begin to look at the world in a way that is, you know, sheer pattern recognition, where like maybe I'm looking through a tree at a house and maybe that makes a letter and I start recognizing that letter and things like that.
Right.
those types of patterns are actually super useful in warriors, in fighters. It was like an evolutionarily advantageous thing because fighting
Interesting.
is all pattern recognition.
Right, exactly.
Intermixed with a little bit of luck. So
Yeah.
if you have like individuals that have, schizophrenia or multiple personality disorders or those types of things, they recognize those patterns, but in modern day times that generally is maladaptive and problematic behaviors. However, I worry that psychedelics may do something similar to an individual, especially with heavy use.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. You wonder, do you ever think that the great conquerors in history, like Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great, do you think that those people that were exceptional at combat had something like schizophrenia or some other?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, maybe they could. I would suspect more so that they had, things like narcissism or
Yes,
things
yes.
like, where they were able to manipulate those around them,
Right.
in a way that we usually associate with like sociopathic tendencies and things like that. However, like it would not be surprising if some of them had, in the very least, schizophrenic like symptoms associated with multiple personality, because there is schizophrenia without those types of things.
Right. Oh, absolutely. 100%. We're not demonizing schizophrenia at all. I mean, it plagues a lot of people, and unfortunately it's latent as well. A lot of people don't know until into their 20s. Yeah.
That's terrifying. Like that would be like our age, and then suddenly like, oh, maybe you recognize that like, oh, this person you've been hanging out with, well, they're not real. I actually know a case of an individual who had that, and he would have to look down at people's feet to figure out if they were real. And the reason is because if they weren't real, they would be floating off the floor just about like an inch or two, and that's how he could tell the difference between them.
Whoa.
But other than that, he could not. And that was how he had to distinguish the world. And that is buck wild.
Yeah. That's crazy, because how could you differentiate if you were in that position? How would you ever be able to do that?
Karate time.
Yeah, I guess so.
If knife hand goes through them, haha, I have uncovered your puzzle.
This is like a lose-lose. Like, well, if you drowned, you weren't a witch.
Exactly. Oh no, I'm sorry, Mr. Principal. I thought you were one of the floating men. That's crazy sentence.
Well, and I wonder too, is that like the border between the floor and the foot? Like you can create something that's there, but you can't interface it with reality.
That's very interesting. Yeah. That like very similar to a video game, like trying to make those two frames. Fun fact, for video game production, one of the hardest things to do is to make two characters kiss. It took so long in video game production, like graphic design, to make these two characters kiss because of that exact thing of trying to make these two surfaces in a believable way interact.
Right.
And there's so much dynamic in human kissing. We'll practice later for you. So that being said, it was so difficult, and even now is considered a very difficult task in game production.
Edge prediction, I believe, is what they call it, and it's like they have to do this sort of recursive mathematics to actually like approach an object. And I think what they do is they involve some sort of fractal geometry.
Oh yeah, some fractals.
They involve a little bit of fractal geometry with it. And in the master's program with SEMO, like how far did they go with the mathematical training?
Well, so for my chemistry work, I had to take calculus, and sadly, at the time I was taking calculus, I was very distracted by a girl in my calculus class. So I did not. She did astounding in the class. I had difficulty balancing both the interest in her and the calculus itself. It's very difficult to integrate the area under a curve while also being interested in the curves of a woman.
It's so funny because my mind went exactly to that joke too. I was gonna edge it in, but I'm so glad that you made it. Thank you for that.
So anyway, this is just, hey, by the way, listener, this is Eric and Eric coming to you.
This is E squared.
So that being said, I had to then use that calculus that I had then been I'd only half learned for physical chemistry.
Yeah.
And a class that I deeply hated. I did not like physical chemistry. I found it an unpleasant experience.
Who did you have?
I had a very esteemed individual.
Yes. Okay. I think I know who you're talking about. However, I had Marcus Bond.
Oh, okay.
And he was so funny. I love that guy.
He's very humorous. I actually did some work with him, and I deeply enjoyed working with him.
Yeah.
I found some challenges learning under this particular individual in several regards, and I think that in some cases my master's program was shortchanged because of that type of experience that seemed pretty consistent, which is a shame.
Certainly, yeah, because I mean that's such a rewarding experience, and I myself am applied and accepted at UMSL for a master's degree in chemistry, and I'm very much looking forward to it for exactly those rewards that you're speaking of. But it almost I'm slightly trepidatious because I know experiences like what you've had with it, and the ability for it to be shortchanged is very easy.
Yes.
To get a rewarding experience from that, which it can provide, is actually very challenging, and it depends on your advisor, I believe. Yeah.
Well, so the best advice that I could probably give you, first and foremost, work with as many tools and instruments as what's currently being used in the field. Everything from HPLCs and to like mass specs, GCs, if you can get NMR experiences, things like that. Some of the things that SEMO had, but maybe didn't spend as much time focusing on. I only once had to figure out the pH via equation and in my entire career, and it did not solve anything. It just told me what was not the answer. And so that being said, it was completely useless. Meanwhile, like I got no HPLC training, and let's actually talk about so my work history. So directly after college, I graduated with my master's, and I got accepted at a position at Novus International, which is a company that I was at for about 2 months. And it was a bad time, not a good time. I was brought into this huge company meeting, and they say, hey, our main thing that we produce is methionine, and 2 and soon to be 3 factories in China are opening that produce methionine at a cheaper rate than we do. And so we're being undercut, and the company is currently $10 million in the hole and increasing. I didn't know this at the time, but I was brought in as a way to try to diversify their portfolio, rather than someone, it's my first job, train me up, help me gain that first step. And they had a pretty rough onboarding program. So 45 working days into my contract, it was terminated, and I was like, thank God. I had the worst boss I've ever had in my whole life.
Oh God.
And she her name was Shing, which is basically like their Johnson over. Like, I don't feel bad saying that, but this individual, who I will not provide any more names for, had fired the last 5 people that had tried for my job. And she was then flown to a management thing, was given like, hey, maybe you're not a great boss. Here's tools you can use. And then had come back from that. And that was when I started. And she had done the exact same thing. She was very, very bad. No help with training and all that. No tools or tricks that I needed.
Right.
So then I was relieved, but then also like financially stressed. I had just moved to St. Louis and then was like, oh, hey, I don't got a job now. This is a bad time. And so then I luckily got connected over at Bayer and was at Bayer for about 1.5 years. And I enjoyed it, save for one woman that I worked with. She had been in the business for like 40 years and had been working there and was still a contractor at an entry-level position. And obviously that type of individual might not be the greatest to work with. But even still, I super enjoyed working there.
And also, she serves as a canary in the coal mine. Because if somebody can stay, you said 40 years?
40 years.
Okay, so that number hit me, and I was like, obviously not 40.
Yeah.
40 fucking years
as
a contractor.
Yeah.
If somebody can last 40 years as a contractor.
Well, she was, I will say, a direct hire for a period of time.
Okay.
Retired, came back as a contractor at a higher rate of pay, but was still working the same type of job that like I, with basically no experience at that point, had.
Right.
And so I felt she had something to prove about herself and all that. And my connection for that, this girl that I knew named Jamie, she also struggled with this individual, and this individual blamed her for some stuff. Like, oh, hey, you didn't start this. And then there's evidence that she did start this, that it was actually Diane's fuck up.
Fucking Diane.
Oh, Diane. So then I make a joke. Every workplace has a Diane.
Every single workplace has a Diane, and that is actually so true. That is so true. I found that because I remember you saying that, and then going to my workplace. Now we have a Diane.
We have a Diane. Yeah. Luckily, at my previous workplace, I was able to avoid and circumvent the Diane. Okay, cool. I didn't know if you wanted me to keep going. So luckily, I was able to circumvent the Diane at my previous workplace. I'm going currently to a new work location, and I'm hoping that I don't work directly with a Diane. But you can see them, whether they're at a distance or not. And if you say no one near me is a Diane, you're the Diane. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to break this to you.
If you
actually have the best situation because you are Diane. The world doesn't get bad for you.
Oh, that's a good point. You can single-handedly change the course of your workplace.
Alter it.
Yeah.
Make it yours.
If you just accept your role as the Diane and realize you can go from Diane to a Jamie, who's a cool colleague.
Jamie's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I like Jamie.
You can make that change. Only you.
So then I decided, hey, I have this nice cush position at Bayer where I've learned so much. And my boss was like, hey, you're doing great, but like your position as a contractor isn't going to get converted into a direct hire for another 3 years. Then I was like, ooh, okay, well, I'm going to apply for direct hires, both at Bayer and elsewhere. And so then I reached out to a dear friend of mine, and I said, hey, I know the place that you're working at. I've seen them. I've driven past them.
Right.
What's that all about?
Yeah, what did I say? Or this hypothetical friend, rather.
And he said to me, he goes, yeah, I've been working here for like a year, and maybe 1.5 years at that point. I don't remember. It was somewhere around a year. And you said to me, it's all right, but if you have it good where you're at, stay there. And then I said, like, how good? And then he goes, overall, I would not recommend it. And I, who was at the time getting, because COVID had just started, and I was only working 20 hours a week, but getting paid for 40 hours a week because they had this program where you make up your hours up into 270 working hours. Then they doubled that, and then they extended that again. And so I could have been working 20 hours a week, making 40-hour a week pay. And I could have stayed doing that, but instead I decided to join a place that is a pharmaceutical compounding, manufacturing, or testing company. Do we say the name? Do we say?
We can go ahead.
Okay.
We've said it in the past.
Okay, cool. So that was when I started working at Dynalabs.
Dynalabs, LLC. He's a returning villain.
So I've worked for a lot of different internationally recognized companies, and then one that is locally infamous, for lack of a better way to say it, and that's Dynalabs. Here in the St. Louis area, Dynalabs is actually well known. If you talk to people, they'll be like, "Oh, the place that's like a McDonald's of pharmaceutical testing." Yes, we know.
We're well aware.
Yeah. And they actually like sometimes target and recruit people from Dynalabs because they know A, that they want to escape, and B, that they have some training. Right. They're not fresh out of college.
It's like a training ground. It really is. And you're hit with flaming darts. 50 hours a week is low.
Yeah.
That's like the starting point. You'll likely work around 60, probably 70.
It's intense. And then I made the genius decision of they have a standards program there that I was like, okay, I got trained on some of the basics and all that. And then they put me on standards and like, wow, Eric makes great standards. His stuff passes more often than not. It's very, very good. And I was like, cool, thanks. I've got some training back at Bayer and all that.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah. And then they said, do you want to do this forever?
In that voice.
Yeah. And so they gave me a small pay bump, which was less than I knew the area average was. However, I didn't have room to negotiate.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'll take that position. And imagine there's a song, and the song is called 16 Tons. It goes, you load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't call me because I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. And it just rang so true as every day, nose to the grindstone. I tried to make the place better and got pushback after pushback. And because I actively fought against, trying to just maintain the norm, keep the boat, moving, and tried to make it better, I was demonized for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
They hated him because he was right.
Well, and like some of the things that they like kept talking, oh man, this is a problem. Oh no, we can't do that and all that. They're still struggling with to this day.
Oh yeah. I don't know what that tendency is, but I have made it a point to become a fighting force against that tendency to remain the same. And it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Without the ability to figure out whether or not something is actually broke.
Yeah.
It's just like you've just accepted it, and it's been that way for 20 years, and you've gotten away with it. But that doesn't mean it's right.
Well, and you can already tell by nature, you brought up the fact of like the working hours and things like that, that perhaps it is in the very least not optimized, that there might be a better way. And coming from a place that had more capital, more years of experience, they were chocolate section. I really enjoy their chocolate.
It's pretty awesome there. I really enjoy it. I actually still work there like once every month or something.
Just to keep the name on the board.
Yeah, just keep the name on the board. I show up like, hey everybody. They're like, oh my God, Eric, it's been forever. And then they tell me all about their life that happened in the last month. And then they're like excited to hear about whatever happened to me, which is usually nothing. It's like, so my life then is exactly similar to what I'm doing now.
Yeah. No changes.
No change at all. But it's funny like that because you're always surrounded by these wonderful products, and Trader Joe's is phenomenal.
I'm very impressed with Trader Joe's and like their, I guess, like quality that they have in product. And
they're simple. They're simple. Like, and it's not as expensive.
But
as
nothing
people.
compared to Ladella. She was such a better cook and worked with better shit.
Thank you. Yes. Please tell me about Ladella.
No, it's I was just making jokes. She's wonderful and still working there. I hugged her on the last day. It was very sad.
I love that.
We became best friends. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was super nice. A very professional environment. I learned a bunch of new tools and techniques that I would have had no opportunity to learn elsewhere. And so,
well, what was your day-to-day like there?
So this is very interesting. So it took a while for me to get trained, and so it was very kind of laissez-faire for, I would say, about the first month or two. Then after that, you would be trained on particular methods, and then you would see like, okay, like there's a solo VPE sample that's come in, or the sample needs protein testing and all that. So then I would say like, okay, and then I would sign up. I would choose to sign up for the sample and then knock that out. And I might do 2 or 3 tests a day and leave right at 8 hours. And it was so nice. But you could essentially make your own schedule. It was all online documentation. So through an ELN, which I will never do a paper documentation place again.
Oh my God. Yes. Holy shit. So that's how my current experience is. Nothing but paper.
Yeah.
Just paper, signing shit all fucking day.
It's so much.
Bad. It's so bad. Why? We live in the 21st century. We have computers. Why would we ever use a fucking notebook?
So this argument, okay, we're going to go back to shit talking Dino for a second. So this argument that you just made was actually an argument that I had with the lead quality, Dan. And I said, why are we doing things on paper? And he's like, I hear what you're saying, but I offer you instead more paper. And then I said, no. And he's like, now you've lost access to Excel. Now I will make you do all calculations by hand. And I said, Dan, please don't do this. And you'll write out the entire equations. We won't offer them to you. You shall not. And so then flames started shooting from his back. And a purple cloud arose in the sky above us. He was just so objectively, I have no hesitation in saying just bad at his job and should not have that position.
Man, should I keep that in?
I'll let you decide.
Yeah. I mean, I'll keep it in if you want.
I don't care either way.
We won't say his last name.
Or
her. Could be Danielle.
I'm sorry, female Dan. So that being said, just this individual had a fixation on paper and more signatures to the point of absolute absurdity.
God,
and every suggestion of shifting to an online system or things like that was met with resistance. And it's a real shame also that the company also had to do layoffs, and there was massive amounts of layoffs, and we've lost individuals that maybe could have made the place better. And such a shame. But I think that is to the detriment of that company that I no longer
100%.
Work at.
I think every person that I've admired from like a competency standard has either left that place or has been walked out.
Yes. So there was an individual who had the job before I did, who also works at Pfizer now. And he is an astoundingly intelligent individual.
He's so good.
And
he's so good at what he does.
I think his frustrations with that place very much mirrored my own. Now we both, him and I, took on what is one of the top 2 hardest jobs there, which is their standard and mobile phase prep. Just day after day, much the same, thankless, shitty position. That is, I'm not gonna say the other ones weren't hard or anything, but as far as somebody came in late at 9:30 and put their standards on the board, and I'm already prepped up to knock everything out. Well, let me just revert back to where I was and restart. And you can't give that person a hard time, otherwise you're demonized. He's being shitty, giving me a hard time about it.
Right.
But it's very difficult and thankless of a job, and he had a bunch of frustrations with it that I found at the end very much mirrored my own. And then working with him again, I just had nothing but admiration for him. He did a great job at Pfizer and continues to do so.
I think that's a very fair assessment of him, and it's unfortunate because he was also someone who was kind of demonized at that place. And there are some, I understood why he felt the way that he felt. And if he ever blew up, I knew that it was because of the circumstances there.
Mhm.
And I feel like given a better environment, his competency is just going to be pulled out, and
Yeah.
he has so much to offer a company. So
Yeah.
I'm very glad to hear that he's doing well at Pfizer.
Yeah. I had actually worked with him, especially over break. They did some cleaning and stuff like that, and he took charge of that. But he's a very intelligent individual, and I hope he's doing well.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
So, anyways,
Yeah, you are from Pfizer.
Yeah.
You are going off to Massachusetts.
to Pfizer still.
To Pfizer still.
To
Okay.
Pfizer still.
To Pfizer
From a
still.
contract to a direct hire position.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Because Pfizer's amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a cool opportunity to be
Yep.
a part of a name that we all know.
I've tested the COVID vaccine. I've tested the flu vaccine. I've tested
That's so
drugs I'm
neat.
not allowed to talk about.
Right.
I've also
you
tested
dare.
like drugs that are super common that like you could look up online, like
Right.
pegfilgrastim is a name
Okay.
of one, which is a very interesting drug that it has an immune response
Right.
mechanism. But
Right.
anyways, I've been involved with the things people talk about, and I've been on the teams that did the things that people talk about.
Right.
And it's super cool.
That's so neat. Because like when 20 years from now, when we're talking about this time now, COVID is going to be still a conversation.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to talk about it. Pfizer played a massive role in mitigating COVID.
Yep.
You worked at Pfizer. You have so much to offer
Yeah.
those conversations now. So that's incredible. And to be in that moment, contributing as much as you can as a scientist is so rewarding. The position I'm at now, we produce something for the vaccine. So I played like a very tiny role. That's what I tell people. I'm like
Same.
the most
Also
minimal.
same. Yeah.
little role. But it's so funny because people will gas you up with it. You know?
Yeah,
You're like,
absolutely.
oh, you're out there saving the world, Eric. And you're like, I wouldn't go that far.
I did the UV test. I figured out how much of it was in this one at day 0 through 12 of the production of this particular batch.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And those bits of instrumentation of like figuring out how much protein is in something given the UV spectra of it.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that works. Like there's so much more to be learned in that field. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so for the Solo VP, I don't know if you use that technology.
We use like a UV vis spectrophotometer.
So that's the traditional UV style work. There's a Solo VPE, which is a version of that. So imagine, so you have your sample and light is shining through it, and the path length, relative to a curve where if I have 0 to 60, I know it's somewhere within that.
Right. Following Beer's law.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the basics of that. What if you didn't need that standard curve? What if you didn't need a whole bunch of sample? What if you only needed like 125, maybe even less microliters of that sample?
How does that work? What the fuck?
So what happens is,
yeah,
you'll take the short of it is that you are still using light, and you have an enclosed space, and you have a fibrette that can receive light on that end, and it is on like a variable arm that determines relative height. And so from the bottom, you have light shooting up through your sample in like a little vessel.
Yeah.
And then that fibrette is dipping down. And because the fibrette is testing at 0 path length, at 1 path length, 2 path length, 3 path length, 4 path length, you can now figure out your path length. You then get a curve of that path length. So here's how much absorbance it has at this particular wavelength.
Yeah.
And at this particular path length, you can then plot that out as its own slope, and its slope is its concentration.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So when you say fibrette, though, what do you mean by that?
Have you ever seen those? how do I describe it? They're like those fiber optic cables.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just one of those. It's like a little section of those. You throw it up inside, and then it will receive that signal at its varying path length. You then take that, toss that. Then you throw a new one in, and then you test a different sample. And it's super neat. Now, you do have something known as the extinction coefficient that, let's say that, like, oh man, this protein really absorbs light. And its electrons take that, and they take that energy and they hold it, or maybe they give it off in a way that's a different wavelength, or different, level of not measurable energy. So you can then calculate for that. You can say, oh, this absorbs 20 times, and then all you do is 20 times the slope. Super easy.
What the fuck?
Yeah, super easy.
That's incredible. They have state-of-the-art technology ready at your disposal to just
not
learn.
Yours, listener. Don't show up.
No, yeah. Don't.
You won't. We can't let you in.
Keeping an eye out for the 30-minute mark. Unfortunately, my camera can only record due to regulations. My camera can only record 30 minutes, and it's unfortunate and doesn't aid itself to podcast. That is at 53 minutes. It's not at an hour and 53 minutes.
I figured that was the case.
Yeah.
I was like, no, that's fine. I was looking at my watch like, I got time.
Yeah, 100%.
I have all the time in the world until Monday. I leave Monday.
Man, St. Louis is going to miss you.
I mean, some of it.
I will.
I'll miss you too, man.
And then I will leave St. Louis. And
we'll still keep in touch.
Yeah.
It's fine. We can always do like virtual podcasts, like
we could
across. I'll have you on Science Snacks sometime.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice. I would like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have enough brain power to.
You don't need to
give.
You
know.
Need to.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. I also interview people on there.
That's so cool. Okay, tell me about that.
So like people in scientific positions, or people who have produced papers or scientific works, or are currently working on research.
Right.
I'll just ask them about their stuff, similar to this.
That is so cool. I know you had a particular podcast about, was it circumcision?
Yep. That's one of my famous ones.
Dude, there was one that like was it criticized? What was going on with that?
Oh, okay. So so let's go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, 100%.
That's my most controversial one, and it wasn't even that controversial. But so circumcision is a topic that is hotly debated, and there is a group out there that is very, anti-circumcision, and then there is a group out there that is very like, hey, this is part of our culture, and it's actually like fine.
Right.
And then there's the science in between. So the World Health Organization currently recommends circumcision. There's bodies of research. However, the research is very, very questionable.
Oh.
So just as a point of example,
right.
There is a body of research that suggests that HIV transmission from individuals that, let's say, have been circumcised, from, let's say, females to individuals that have been circumcised is 67% higher than if they were not circumcised. Wait, hold up. Basically, let me have another run at that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's say that you have an individual who is circumcised. He's 67% less likely to get HIV than someone who has not been circumcised, or at least that's what the paper would claim. However, there's competing papers.
Whoa.
And it doesn't make sense in like worldwide. So in the United States, we have roughly about 60% individuals that are circumcised. It also is very dependent on where you live. For example, we live here in the Bible Belt, which is like 99% people.
I was going to say, like the probability that you're talking to somebody who's circumcised is overwhelming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then you have individuals, let's say, that are in Europe, in European countries, where there's less frequency of circumcision. You also have areas like, let's say, in Israel, where there's high frequency of circumcision. So if, let's say, that an individual were 67% more likely to get HIV in those areas where, they have no circumcision, then we should be able to mathematically show that. and even calculating for differences in frequencies of individuals having sex, HIV rates, and things like that, the numbers do not add up. And there's large bodies of studies about this anthropological look at it. And then you start looking at the individuals who are producing the studies, and what it appears to me is some level of confirmation bias. So it seems to me that people who have been circumcised are then producing materials that are justifying their circumcision. I myself am a heavy advocate of not circumcising.
Right. And I'm
for
right there with
obvious reasons.
Yeah. Speaking as a man who is circumcised, I would not recommend it.
There's
I didn't even know that happened. You don't even know until you're talking with your friends and then they bring it up and you're like, wait, did they do something to my dick?
It's wild. And then I didn't know that like everyone else was looking different than me.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine who was talking to me, and he said, I have received terrible feedback about my uncircumcised penis, and it has been like traumatic for him to the point that he was looking at adult circumcision.
Jesus.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I have never received that type of feedback, and that is very jarring to me because that is not anything that I have ever have or received. So that being said, I looked at the science and I had to remake that episode 3 times because I initially started out super hard against it.
Right.
As one would.
Yeah.
And then I started reading the work and I was like, well, shit.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, well, begrudgingly. But I have a big belief that we should follow the science, and whatever the 100%. Science says, that is what is fact. And then when I started looking at the two sources and their cross arguments, then I ended up in a middle space. And so I currently stand with the belief that we probably should not be circumcising, except in areas where we have increased penile cancer frequency, which generally, interestingly enough, has to do more with smoking. And as smoking rates decrease, so too do, and so it's very similar, to like lungs and all that. So when you have that tar buildup and things like that in the lungs, well, you have other areas, other folds of your skin where those things can occur, and when that stays there, it can cause mutations. You see this in heavier individuals too that have like layers and they don't bathe appropriately.
I could see that.
So as smoking rates decrease, so too has the frequency of penile cancer. But then you also have this challenge of like areas where there is some level of improvement with the HIV molecule, and the current mechanism for understanding it, it currently puts it at 12% is the most reasonable thing that I've seen. And the reason for this is because of something known as M cell sampling, where you have in your body immune cells that are actively working at reaching across mucosal membranes, grabbing things, and then taking them in and essentially building an immune response to that. However, the HIV molecule wants to be picked up by immune cells, so therefore it gets into your body. However, the frequency of that, so that only matters if you are someone that has been exposed to someone who is currently producing a viral load of HIV. And there's things like, I believe it's Prevnar, which are preventative agents and things like that can essentially reduce your viral load to 0. A friend of mine as with an individual with HIV, and he currently can have unprotected sex with that individual without worry.
And that's incredible.
Yeah.
Because I think if you are given that scenario of having an incurable disease that you could potentially spread to someone,
be terrifying.
Yeah. You would never leave your house.
I HIV, and let's say that they are attention seeking. They want that attention, because all human behavior comes down to 4 things, right? And one of them is attention seeking behavior. So let's say that like they want attention. One of the things that you will see out of HIV positive children is that they will slash their wrists and then try to get their blood onto other people in order to have that large response, because any attention is good attention, even bad attention. And so they will start to like cut themselves. They'll peel away at their own skin, things like that.
Right.
Just for that big response from you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so sad. And I think that for me, that brings up an idea of, you know, it's easier to get bad attention
Yes.
than it is to get good attention. For good attention to have to be given to you as a child, your parents have to constantly be there. Your grandparents have to constantly be there and feed you the love that they have for you. But you know, they have to be around and they have to be loving to you.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people in America don't have that.
No. In fact, we're more likely to yell at a child or spank a child and things like that. And if you don't understand the function of the behavior, then you're actually like spanking a child. That's a form of attention.
Right.
If you're yelling at a child, so what you're doing is you're reinforcing the problematic behaviors that you're experiencing.
Yep. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You know, I was blessed, absolutely blessed to have a mom that just had overwhelming love for me, you know, and not everybody has that. So for me, I mean, it's given me this momentum in life that just wants me to give love to everybody, right?
Because they need it. Everybody needs love.
Exactly. And yeah, that negative attention though is so easy to lash out onto others.
Yeah. No, I also was blessed to have like a mother that loved and cared about me. Of course, I have a crime lord father with like a wild history, but that's a completely different thing.
I was going to say, I'm like, we can get into that if you want. I don't want.
I don't care,
force
man.
That on you.
I am an open book. So whatever you would like to talk about, it is completely open.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the story with your dad?
Okay, so let's fucking dive into it.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, let's start from an Eric perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. So from my perspective, I grew up with this man who he until I was around 7 was like an okay dad. And then when I turned like 7, it almost seemed like a switch that like suddenly I was an inconvenience to him. And I have heard other people's experience that very much mirrored mine in cases where their father tried to kill them. My dad did not try to kill me. I should go ahead and say that.
Right.
But there was, sociopathic tendencies with him. He was addicted to literally everything. He had where he was quick to anger all the time, and anything could set him off. And anything that distracted him from whatever preferred, reinforcer that he had. Usually that was something like with a computer, with a movie, things like that. Even me laughing like at a movie, watching it with him would make him upset.
Joy.
I could not express childhood laughter without his anger. And so that being said, he also claimed that he served in the military, was a Navy SEAL for 6 years. Went on his tours. He would tell stories about it. He was also a martial artist. He claimed to be a 4th Dan black belt in Nada Sisha karate. And we'll get to it.
Yeah.
And he had some level of skill that demonstrates like he knew at least in some degree what he was doing. He worked at Nike as a technical manufacturer, and then eventually worked at this place called Spar Tech as a technical engineer. He was fired from Nike for leaving a hostile note to another worker.
Oh God.
So then, I was in grad school in an emotionally abusive relationship at the time, and it was just kind of starting to do that thing where it goes from the honeymoon phase to an emotionally abusive thing. And I don't blame the girl for it. She was dealing with some trust issues as she discovered that like her ex had done some pretty terrible things while with her. So she had issues trusting anyone, even me. Right. And I don't blame her at all. And I still hold, a lot of care for her. That being said, so I was dealing with that, and then I get a phone call that essentially showed that my dad had hurt several children, and that we had evidence of it, and we were working on collecting more.
Right.
And so then I was immediate, and they said, "Hey, Eric, We're going to meet here. Okay. And then we
Yeah.
had this big conversation about whether or not I'm going to kill my father.
God.
So it was a very intense situation.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time where we had to act like things were normal as the police built their case. And I was helping them collect the evidence against him. And then there was a moment where he had kind of a locked room with like computers and all that, where he could like have his own smoke shack, because my mom had kicked him out of the house, said no more smoking in the house. And so he had like put a bunch of stuff in there, made his own little thing for it. And so there was a moment where me and a police officer, we kicked in the door to that area, and it's go time. We collected as much evidence. He was at work at the time, and we hand that over to the police. They were able to break into it. They found a mountain of child pornography. They said they had never found this much. And it was a preposterous amount. We found connections through essentially like an online cryptocurrency that he was using to pay people on the dark web for that types of stuff. We had some inclination, because we had gotten a cease and desist letter from AT&T about that type of thing. So like, we knew kind of where to look. But that was all at the same time. Okay. So my dad goes on the run. The night we open the door and all that, I'm actually set to leave on a trip for school to New Orleans. It was for a presentation with the American Chemical Society, and I left at 4 a.m. But I knew that he got off work at 11 a.m. and I knew that he had been served an ex parte at his work directly at 11. So I was expecting him to come by the house. And so I was at the house waiting with my family stuff and my dog and all that. Because my family had gone over to a hotel to stay safe. And so then is this story intense?
Yes, intense. It is intense.
So I had been waiting there, and we eventually found like a thing to set up my dog temporarily, and I think we had also done it for the cat. But I was waiting at the house, and I had with me one of my guns, and was like waiting for him. He never showed up. I eventually left and all that, and then he went on the run for 30 days. And I was able to track down where he was within an hour of him being there, but that was the closest I'd ever gotten.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I went into kind of a weird bounty hunter thing.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah. For my own dad. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So then eventually a park ranger found him, chased him down, said that he easily caught him because my dad's overweight.
Oh, no.
And also like a lifelong smoker and all that, tackled him and arrested him. They pulled him in, and they were able to get even more passwords off of his computers and equipment and stuff like that. And they not through him, but instead, just through their forensic computer investigators. And so they found even more. Like, it was a preposterous amount. And so it was then that I was talking with the sheriff, this detective woman that she took me into the side room. She said, "Okay, you were telling me these things about your dad. If it were my dad, I would want to know." And then she handed me a file on my father. And this file said, convicted felon, arson, burglary.
And you have no idea.
Never had a clue that I lived with a convicted felon. So then I'm trying to solve that puzzle.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what are you? And she goes, I don't know anything more. And that's what I know. I also think that you should look further into your dad's military history.
Right.
Okay. And so then we separated, and she was excellent. She's amazing. And she wasn't supposed to show me those things.
Sounds fantastic. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I started researching into it. So how the story goes is that my dad, at the age of around 13, he was physically and likely sexually assaulted by his father. And we suspect that also more of his family members were. So I believe that it's a matter of like trying to regain power in his own life and a feeling of self-control, but also something that affected you at that early of an age.
Right.
So then I started researching more into his past, and I found out that he joined the Navy when he was like 19 years old.
Okay.
And he was dishonorably discharged after 6 months of being in the military with only 1 month of active duty. He had claimed 6 years. So what happened to the rest of those? Well, once upon a time, as all good stories begin, there was this place in Cape Girardeau, Missouri that was Stevie's Pizzeria. And old Stevie's Pizzeria used to be like a place where the sun shines just a little bit brighter, and there's like a rainbow emitting through the glass, and you pan over from like a little bit of that like, I don't know, a kind of aesthetic dust over to the people who are flipping the doughs and the kids running by with smiles on their faces. As you look outside, there's green grass and it just looks happy, you know. So my dad was working there.
Okay. All right. This is very pleasant.
And he burnt the place to the fucking ground.
Jesus.
Yep. What? Him and one of his coworkers, Nathan, they claim that it was like part of an insurance scam.
Yeah.
But, it was not. In fact, they tried to rob the place and then they burnt it down, likely out of some like spite against the owner.
Right.
And then they tried to accuse the owner of doing an insurance scam and utilizing them for it, and then not, giving the payout.
Right. A likely excuse.
Yeah. So that covered the convicted burglary and arson. I still don't know where he learned his martial arts stuff. I suspect it's something in prison, because they do have the 52 blocks program that they teach in prison, which is a fairly okay martial art. But he also claimed to have worked with someone named Pat, who I'm very involved in the martial arts community. Right. And I tried to track down this person, tried to track down Nada Sisha Karate. Doesn't exist. Tried to track down this Pat guy. He had stopped doing martial arts like 3 decades previous, and he run a car dealership and all that. And he wasn't exactly doing like a Cobra Kai kind of thing.
Yeah. So you've done an absurd amount of investigative work when it comes to this backstory.
Yeah.
That it seems like he's perpetually lied about.
Yeah. And lied to my mom. So then when he showed up at SEMO, as like a non-traditional student at the age of like 26.
Okay.
After having spent 5 years in prison, he managed to convince this 18-year-old girl that he was in fact this like Navy SEAL guy who, worked a security job and like, had to make these trips. And he managed to sell himself, or at least a mask of himself, to her.
Right.
And he managed to keep up that mask for about 30 years.
That sounds unbearable.
So then I had to go to, my regular classes in grad school.
Yeah.
Fuck. So that's the story of my dad. He got 15 years in prison. He is currently serving that. I think he has like another 10 to go. The judge, when he took the plea deal, said, "Wow, I think he should have gotten more."
Yeah. I was just gonna say it's never enough.
Yeah.
It's never and even close to enough.
Well, it was my hope that he would die in prison, because by the time he gets out, he should be around like 80 years old.
Okay.
And he would be more up there in age, and with lifelong experience smoking and all that, he already had 1 heart attack. So it's fingers crossed.
Yeah. It's likely it's up there. That is so sad though.
Isn't that an intense story?
It is very intense.
Yeah.
God, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine. I have since moved on. For me, for a period of time, I worried that, I have this to some degree, his genetics. And so I noticed that, when I was a kid, I had anger problems, but I now suspect that was just me lashing out, because first of all, that's what I was modeled. Like that is what it means to be a man, is to have these anger things.
For sure.
And then also, like, I think that maybe I was, lashing out about the fact that I wasn't experiencing the love and care that I should have been at home, that I was being seen as an inconvenience. And so those types of things. So I worried about that. I also worried like, he's a pedophile. what if one day I wake up and I have those types of feelings
Right,
too?
right. Is that in me?
So I actually ended up talking to a counselor about it, who's an
Yeah.
expert in that field and kind of like the field of family counseling. And we talked pretty in depth about it and looked at what the research actually says.
Right.
If you're not sexually assaulted at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
then no. And then also if you haven't been having these feelings since a young age, because what tends to happen is that people with that get stuck at a particular age,
Right.
and then as they age, their interest in the individuals around them stay at a certain age, whereas mine has always aged with me, and in my case has sometimes aged beyond me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So being like, ooh, hey, this woman's like 37. What's up, girl? Like,
it's almost like your mind gets stuck at a certain age.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're almost throwing yourself to the future.
I don't know if that's what I'm personally doing.
Okay.
But instead that mine has in some degree, progressed with me in a healthy way, that it's more about the individual themselves and, more about like, is this someone that I can actively communicate and talk to? And, that I find attractive in that way. But it has not been an issue. And I now, looking at the research, am no longer concerned about that. That was a real concern.
Seriously.
For a period of time. Cause like, oh, hey, like how many other things? And like he has like a history of like heart disease and like, cholesterol and things. Like, how many other things do I need to worry about? And I can't ask him. He's going to lie about everything. He's always lied about everything.
So how do you get an accurate background on your ancestry if that's the case? How do you get a background on what your family's health is like? Have you ever done anything like a genetic test?
No, I have like the stories that he told me, but what I have noticed is because I'm familiar with his side of the family, there's extreme addiction problems.
Okay.
Which I think also corresponds to like he was addicted to smoking. He, I think, used to drink. He also had, obviously the child pornography thing. He was addicted to everything under the sun. There was nothing that he could not get addicted to. We actually suspect at the end that he was doing methamphetamine.
Okay.
But that was while he was on the run. And then he also left suicide notes and things like that I burned so that my family would never have to see them. But mine basically said that he never understood me, which I took as a compliment.
Yeah.
And no, we're talking about some dark stuff.
Seriously.
But, his family is highly addicted to stuff. So that's one of the reasons I don't drink, or when I do, it's very, very rare. And that I've never gotten into doing any types of drugs like psychedelics, like we talked about before, because I worry that I would love it. Yeah.
It is fantastic. Though there's not the physical dependency on it, but you're exactly right. You can become, if you have an addictive personality, you can latch on to things and never let go.
I do.
I, for example, love caffeine. I love the shit out of caffeine. I will drink so many energy drinks, right? Because I have that element. I have that element of addiction where I will latch on to something and just do that over and over and over.
I did axe throwing for far too long. I got very into axe throwing.
Hey, I always love your Snapchats about the.
I was always trying to like one up myself. Eventually, I ran out of axe tricks to do. I got too good, and then it's just like do this repetitively and like the way that you do like bowling to get a score of 300. I was like, bored. I was like, I want to do cool spin tricks. I was making up stuff, and they're like, Eric, that seems dangerous. But then I would hit the bullseye, and I'd be like, ha ha.
Did you ever consider like getting a part-time job there just to,
I mean, I did. There's actually like so I discovered that Top Notch Axe Throwing was actually actively recruiting people, and it paid, I believe, either $12 or $17 an hour. I don't remember which, but either way, I was like, that's not enough to really make me stay, but also I get paid to just hang out and axe throw. So like, But anyways,
it is hard. That's a hard decision because you're right. As scientists, like we don't get paid astronomical rates.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. It can be.
Yeah.
It can be a lot.
Yeah.
Right now, mine's totally mediocre. It's like probably under median household income, but it's above poverty. Yeah. I'll take that.
Above poverty. I'm very thankful to have my the pay that I do, and it's good.
Yeah.
But that being said, for a long period of time, it was not.
Yeah.
And I think that there are ones on the other side of the country, obviously, and
On the East Coast.
yeah, the East Coast.
I've heard the East Coast is a good coast for scientists.
It's a bunch of pharmaceutical like research and stuff like that, and the pay is
Okay.
pretty good. Don't end up. So my buddy Mikey,
Okay.
I think you know.
Tell
Mikey.
me about Mikey.
Okay,
I think
Mikey-
I might. He went to SEMA, right?
Yeah, he's a boxer.
Maybe.
He had childhood cancer at the age of 16 and lost all of his hair and was forever self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
So anyways, but he's a wonderful guy. He's genuinely a good hearted person, and honestly, like he's better than I am.
Right.
He ended up going to California, and they said, "Hey, we'll let you run a lab there. It's going to be a THC producing lab, or we're trying to do all that."
Nice,
And
dude.
they said, "We'll pay you $90,000 a year." And Mikey's from here in Missouri, and he said, "$90,000? Okay, great."
Holy shit! Absolutely.
And so he goes out to California and
For his
discovers.
Yeah.
So, and then he also got very frustrated, not only that he was seemingly being underpaid, but
Yeah.
also the fact that like when he arrived there, it's a startup company, and so much the startup company that they're like sitting at a table together, like, okay, what does everyone know? We got to come up with stuff.
Yeah,
And, like,
yeah.
He was like, "No, I'm fresh out of college. You guys
Yeah.
help me. This is industry. This is
Exactly. I'm
different."
supposed to grow here.
And so he got very frustrated by that, and I think eventually returned to Cape, and then I think he's
Damn
moving
it.
to St. Louis.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, Mikey.
yeah.
Dude, I gotta pee again.
Wish your bliss, man. We can
Yeah.
hang.
I'm gonna go ahead and hang this for a second, but you can say whatever you want into the mic.
I'll tell them the Eric dark secrets.
Do it.
They won't know that we have sweaters and stuff.
Grandma's living life like it's GTA.
Oh, do you need more water?
I can grab it. No worries.
Yeah, there's like a Brita and top left. Okay, great.
I should. Oh. Huh. How convenient.
Nice.
And then that'll pick up there. Is this thing still going? Yeah, nice. Let's check this guy. Technically, yes, but I'll restart that. Now you've seen my refrigerator.
What's that?
I said, now you've seen my refrigerator.
I have seen your fridge. It's very meatful.
It is. I am currently on the ketogenic diet.
Oh,
well,
no.
I wouldn't say currently, because I just ate sushi.
Oh, okay. Well,
So I currently have carbs in my body. But
uh-oh.
that being said, my philosophy when it comes to diet is you don't want to be high fat and high carb at the same time because it can be cumbersome on the body. So what I like to do is choose either high carb or high fat. So I'll oscillate between going high fat, ketogenic, or rice,
I mean, obviously, it's all about calories.
100%.
Yeah. I, at one point, had lost 40 pounds and then decided to work a super stressful job at a shitty company. Regain that weight.
What's that company called?
That's Dynalabs, in case you didn't hear it.
Returning villain. I'll have like a thunder
There you
soundtrack
go.
every time you say Dynalabs.
So I regained that weight, but then I've recently started changing my workout philosophy. I've been doing science snacks that are very focused on like fitness and exercise science and all that.
Right.
And so I had for years and years and years been fixated on this idea of muscle confusion.
Okay.
And that's absolute trash. It is not backed up by any science whatsoever. Yeah. Instead, progressive overload and muscular tension is the main form that we gain muscle. And since I've been doing that, I have gained, my bench has increased by 100 pounds. My squat has increased by 100 pounds.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, no, it is buck wild.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah. And so I've been keeping track, and the whole thing with it is like notebook or some form of like, every single week increase by 1 rep, 3 reps.
Right.
Yeah. And so I've been doing that, and it honestly feels like leveling up every single week. It's super cool. And but that being said, like you just keep doing the same thing to lose weight. And so I've been trying to lose weight, and I'm roughly down about 10 pounds.
Nice.
But I have another 30 to go.
No, you look good, man.
Thanks,
you look
man.
Good. Absolutely. You look swole too.
I think that it's like the arms and the chest are the best things here. But surprisingly, as I was choking out my friend Rob with my legs the other day, I was like, legs too, huh?
Yes. Yes. The triceps.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's now I have radically changed my perspective. For 16 years, I weightlifted wrong with the wrong perspective. I did a bro split, and I focused on muscular confusion, and I did not realize that I should not have been doing either of those things.
So if you could sum up muscular confusion, how would you do that?
So the idea of muscular confusion is this idea that the way to build muscle is through taking the muscle through a large variety of different tools and techniques to quote unquote confuse the muscle in a variety of different directions. The idea is that when you do this, it tears the muscle in a variety of different directions and ways, and that rebuilding of that muscle will then result in a larger muscle. And this tends to produce a lot of fatigue in individuals. So they think, I've gotten a good workout because, I did like, my hammer curls and my W curls, and I did my traditional supinated curls and all that. And I did it from so many different directions that I must have gotten in a good workout.
Okay.
And the science says that is 100% wrong.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense though. Because you get that feedback of, dude, I am so sore.
Yeah.
My pecs have been sore for a fucking week.
Well, DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness, are not a good form of measuring the effectiveness of a workout. You can use them to figure out, did I target the muscle in the correct spot and the correct way? But overall, like DOMS are not a good way to figure out if you had good muscular tension. The best way to do that is by your notebook and seeing, is my number bigger than the last time?
Right. Science.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And the tracking and trending of data fits super well. So then I got an app called Fitbob that I highly recommend. I made my own workouts in accordance with an upper lower split that I do twice weekly. So a total of 4 workouts per week. I also been doing flexibility training to work on my splits.
Okay.
So that I can kick higher and stuff like that. I've gained 14 degrees from my starting point in my split.
That's incredible.
Yeah. But it's all tracking and trending. Everything is always tracking and trending.
Tracking and trending.
Yeah.
It's very scientific.
It is.
Yeah.
I can't believe I went 16 years with such a fucking willy-nilly approach.
I know. For me, it's a lot of willy-nilly. And as a scientist, I should track and trend.
Mhm.
But dude, I like to remove all barriers. And if I can provide the least amount of effort to get into the gym and just be there and do something, and then sit in the sauna and then leave.
Nice.
Yeah. It's not the most effective approach, but it does get me there. And I feel like once you have that habit forming stage completed,
Yeah.
then you can move on to, all right, I am here. I'm coming here. My body knows I'm coming here every 3 days or something, or like 3 times a week. So while I'm here, how do I optimize and make my workouts most efficient to actually work best in my favor?
Well, I can tell you how to do that, actually.
Yeah, tell me.
So if you're doing 3 days, the recommended thing is a total body workout that focuses on compound muscle lifts. So doing your squats, I'm not a big fan of bench press, but I'll do dumbbell bench presses.
Yeah.
Things like that, or lat pull downs, these things that work your body in like a push, pull, and legs type of way.
Okay.
So you do that 3 times per week if you're doing 3 days. At 4 days, you do what I do, which is the upper lower split. And at 5 days per week, you do what's called push, pull, legs, upper lower.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but for what, I currently do is Monday and Tuesday, upper lower, and then Thursday, Friday, upper lower. So
that makes sense.
The general idea is that you should hit every single muscle 1 to 3 times per week. The idealized form of it is somewhere in the 2 times per week range.
Okay.
And that you need about 1 day of rest or up to 36 hours. Anything beyond that is unnecessary. Your muscles already recovered as it will.
Right.
And that's about it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I have seen graphs that said 7 days for a muscle to fully recover and things like that. But and I've seen like things that talk about, but when you actually get to the hard science and what people are measuring, how they're doing, the answer is 36 hours. The answer is twice per week, things like that. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I might have to update my current.
That's if you're focused on hypertrophy, though.
Right.
There is strength training, which is wildly different. And
okay.
I don't tend to do that. I tend to focus on hypertrophy through strength.
Right. And of course, hypertrophy is the growth of muscle.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
No.
Of course. I love this because this is Labdominals at its
Labdominals.
Nice.
It's speaking of,
it's the dumbest.
Abs are the exact same way.
Yeah.
You work them 2 to 3 times per week. Not some crazy like high intensity ab YouTube workout. I used to be so into P90X. That's how I lost the weight.
Yeah, you definitely were.
When I got lower in that body fat percentage, I realized that I didn't have enough muscle to display in that traditional way. So I was at 12% body fat, but I didn't have the abs associated with 12% because I didn't have that muscular growth.
Right.
So I mean, that's one thing to shit on, the YouTube, here's a quick 15-minute abs workout and all that. Of course, you have to have progressive overload.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that is what bodybuilders will often say too. I think my ex-girlfriend turned me on to
well, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, she turned me on to the progressive overload. Progressive overload and depression.
That joke
overload.
Felt like it was set up for me to spike.
It's like volleyball here, comedic volleyball. Yeah, that's awesome. So what are you looking forward to in Massachusetts? What does that world look like for you?
So first and foremost, I am looking forward to owning my own place.
Yes.
I have we're closed on a house in a little less than a month.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a condo. It's I didn't see myself as a condo man
No.
when I initially like was like, you know, I kind of want like my own house and like a big basement and like set
Right.
up or workshop
Oh,
of some kind.
100%.
Like,
Yeah.
but then like we started looking at places, and then I got really fixated on like these townhouse things where like, oh, it's, you know, you share a wall with somebody and things like that. And
Right.
eventually we just found a condo and chose by location. It was super nice.
Okay.
So
That's fantastic.
yeah, no, and then I'm excited to start the new job and be working there. They've been so supportive, like of me, like taking my time, getting up there. They're paying for my moving costs. So
Wow.
like
That's
of like
insane.
packing and shipping and stuff like that.
Yep.
It is buck wild. I've never been treated so fancy, taken out on a date like this. I mean, I'm gonna have to put out
Pfizer.
to
Yeah.
and so then that joke is problematic on so many levels. So, and then on top of that, like just kind of getting to explore the city. I ran into this thing with like Cape and Jackson where it just started feeling small.
Yep.
And then here in St. Louis, because St. Louis is like a dying city, for lack of a way to say it, like it is decrepitating from the inside. It is the only city in the United States that people are actively moving out of. It has a negative growth populace.
Well, this is a great place to leave. This is literally called the gateway to the west. Now you're going to the east, which is okay. But
well, I got to go back through Illinois, which everyone knows is full of demons.
Oh, that's a good
point.
That
gateway is actually a portal to hell.
Well, that, you know, they are kind of coalesced in Chicago.
I don't know about that. I have been to Cairo, Illinois. I actually did skydiving lessons there. I was in 2 skydiving accidents. That's a separate thing. So anyways, I'm very much looking forward. I'm going to start over with a new martial arts group. I'm going to start at a white belt all over again. And it's going to be fun.
Nice. That is so cool. And I love that because you had a business here in St. Louis, Gateway.
Archway Self-Defense.
Archway Self-Defense. Thank you. Now, Archway Self-Defense hit COVID.
Yep.
And it killed it.
Yeah, I lasted about 5 months into COVID. And it that was when I realized just how big of a deal it was, and also how little of a deal people were making it.
Right.
And that was also like, you know, I hit a moral point where I was like, I can't teach people, you know, self-defense and then also put them at risk of getting COVID.
Yeah, it's a moral quandary.
Yeah. So then for me, it wasn't a quandary. I shut it down.
100%.
And I had people calling me like, okay, well, are you opening back up? What are you doing? And we were still in the midst of COVID. And I'm like,
right.
Just because everyone else is opening back up doesn't mean like that, you know, it makes sense to.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I decided I'm not opening it again. So, but yeah, I taught Taekwondo, Hapkido, and Judo. I at one point had a kids class of 20 kids. I had an adults class that hit around 5 or 6, which is pretty decent for an adults class.
Super decent, yeah.
But yeah, it was very nice. And I worked with some of the kids which had like, you know, emotional challenges and things like that. It was very nice.
That's incredible. And I don't think we touched on that yet. You are a black belt in multiple martial
Taekwondo
arts.
And Hapkido. I also do Judo. I've competitively fought in Judo for 7 years now. And I also have been learning Shotokan Karate.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you knew that one.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Over COVID, I had a contact who knows the forms and all that, was willing to work with me, and so I've been progressively learning Shotokan Karate forms.
That's incredible.
For funsies.
So I did want to go into this. Like, what led you into martial arts, and what was the original pull that brought you in?
Well, in 1993, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers premiered in the U.S.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I was born in 1993. So if we can align those two things. Also, there was a lot of flooding and the first attack on the World Trade Center in 1993.
Yes.
The bombing in the basement.
There sure was.
Anyways, but most importantly, Jurassic Park. And second most importantly, Power Rangers.
Morphin Power Rangers. And
no.
They had karate.
They had something.
Yeah.
It was mostly dancers. But I also grew up in a house. Of course, I talked about my dad. We had like swords and bow staffs and crossbows and throwing stars. And then I also recently discovered that the Three Ninjas movie series with Rocky Colt and Tom Tom was a core memory of mine. These little kids that get taught ninja from their grandpa, and then they go around beating people up by kicking them either in the balls or in the head.
Wow, why does this sound like an offshoot of Karate Kid?
It's imagine if it were three Karate Kids, and
Okay.
instead of Mr. Miyagi, it's a man who looks just like Mr. Miyagi, but it's their grandpa. It is 100%. And then so they fight ninjas in the first one, obviously, and then in the second one, they fight Texans. Yeah, and then and then in the third one, it's back to ninjas.
Yeah, just some dudes from Texas.
Well, so they have like a weird thing with I think like the Navajo tribes and all that. Like the premise is that they're dumping on Navajo land and they've kidnapped one of the people and all that. They're part of this like trash play. They're just dumping toxic waste materials onto Navajo land, and they've kidnapped people. And so it's just a bunch of these kids or their stunt doubles fighting these like Texan like businessmen and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one is terrorists who have taken over a theme park. So you can tell the movies they go off a ledge.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
What a ride.
And they replace the kids without saying anything about it.
No.
Just suddenly Colt goes from being this like, I don't know, kind of cool looking hothead boy to a kid who has a crazy mullet.
Like totally different
just
dude.
And a lisp, and it's a whole thing. And then Tum Tum goes from like this chunky little like brown haired kid with a bowl cut to being this like blonde kid who has like full splits capabilities. Is buck wild. And then the Hulk Hogan's in the fourth one. And he plays what is kind of like a Power Ranger. Yeah. And then so Hulk Hogan just shirtless is like, I don't know, kids, let's go take out these terrorists. It is a trip.
Is this like before the wrestler cameo was actually like cool?
So I believe that one came out in 1998.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say no.
Yeah. Because like there was a point in time where like maybe wrestlers were in films, but it wasn't like a thing. And now it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
In the next feature film.
Well, but that's Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's different. Having Hulk Hogan pretend to be like a Power Ranger man.
Whatever, kids. Let's just
let's fight
these terrorists.
So he kicks a terrorist off of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Where the terrorist presumably falls to his death. And then he takes the terrorist nunchucks that the terrorist was using. Because, of course, Hulk just like punched the terrorist with nunchucks and the terrorist like fucking died. And then he takes the nunchucks and uses them to zip line into another terrorist through a door, which then released all the people being held captive at this park. It is wild.
This is a work of cinematic genius.
I loved it so much. Anyways,
like what was their end game? What was the point of them taking over this theme park?
Well, terrorists, they wanted money from the theme park owner who was rich, and then they were going to use that money to escape the United States. Of course, and it was all led by this woman who I think is a female bodybuilder of some time and importance in the 90s, but regardless, so I discovered that was also a core memory pretty recently. But no, I always thought martial arts was cool. I also started it to get more into, when I initially like thought of it, I thought of something more similar to Hapkido, but of course there's like striking arts like what they feature in the Karate Kid or, you know, the Three Ninjas and you know, Power Rangers and stuff. Right. And then, but I wanted to learn something a bit more nuanced like Hapkido. And then I've progressively gotten more and more into Judo because there's some similarities there. And
absolutely. And Hapkido, just as a brief background, that's the Korean martial arts.
Yeah. So Hapkido was taught traditionally by the Koreans, especially during the Korean War. It was taught side by side with Taekwondo. So Taekwondo is very like a linear striking, punch, kick, knee, elbow kind of art.
Right.
Hapkido is what's referred to as an eclectic martial art, which takes from a variety of different backgrounds and is consolidated into something that is more cohesive. So Hapkido is most known for its joint locks and throws and things like that. Often it's mistaken for Aikido, which is a trash martial arts for trash people.
How long has that been off?
Whoops.
Yeah, I know, right? I stopped looking at the clock. That was my problem.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Oops.
Oopsies. Yeah, no, that's cool. I did have a question as far as are you familiar with Sci-Hub?
I am familiar with Sci-Hub.
What's your opinion on that?
Ooh. I think that it has been touted as being like something that is amazing and all that, but because of its exclusivity and because of how many people, actually have access to it, it is not good in the way that like something like that one medical hub paper place, PubMed.
Yeah.
So PubMed, because it has access to so many different things, it's so open to everyone, it has better tools and equipment, whereas you have to pay for Sci-Hub.
Do you?
I thought that was the case.
Well, so I should be clear about this. Sci-Hub, basically you can take any DOI and put it inside a Sci-Hub and it changes directories. It's like .de or whatever, but you put that DOI into Sci-Hub and it'll just unlock it for you. And it's supposed to be free.
Nice.
Yeah, it's supposed to be completely free of charge.
Oh.
And my initial thought is like, oh man, the scientists aren't going to get paid.
Oh, okay. Well, so first of all,
yeah,
I am talking about like some specific work that is that we were shown in college with Sci-Hub, where you can like model any type of molecule inside of it. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Is that also called Sci-Hub?
I think that is that not called Sci-Hub? That's gonna bug the shit out of me.
Yeah, because it has those bond line structures in the logo,
and then it'll give you like everything about that molecule in research papers. Okay, so that's what I was talking about.
Gotcha.
So as far as publishing,
you
ready for this?
Yeah.
I am published multiple times.
Congratulations.
And am looking at doing more publications.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, we had to pay to publish, and I don't receive any money for my publishing. So we had to pay an online website to publish for us. Now, to be fair, sometimes those are part of the grants. Like the grants will be like, oh, this has to be free and available for everyone else to view. So it'll be hosted on these various different sites. However, those sites come in different qualities. And that's something we talk about on Science Snacks is like there is predatory publishers out there who will happily take your money and will happily post what you have, but they won't give it any editorialization, or they won't review it in any form for, by experts in your field and all that. So it's very challenging to post to ones that actually are good. And so I think that making more science readily available is always positive. So I'm completely on board.
Thank you. Because for a moment there, I was like, oh, I don't know if he's against Sci-Hub or not.
Sorry. No. I thought we were talking about that stupid friggin' program that was touted to us as being like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. And I was like, this isn't that impressive.
Yeah. This you could just fucking draw things.
Yeah.
I could do that on the ACS website. Why would I?
No. We had a class that revolved around it.
Oh, seriously?
487, I believe.
Let's see. Was that professional experience in chemistry?
I believe so.
Yep. Stupid.
They had a biology version of it that was actually super good. It was taught by Dr. James Champagne, and we went over everything. Yep. I personally don't like Dr. James Champagne.
Really?
He yelled at me once.
Oh, he does. He has that. Is that New Englander bluntness?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But he yelled at me once for coming in late for one of his labs, which I had consistently been coming in late, but I also was consistently working 60 hours a week.
Oh, that's true.
Get off my fucking back. I pay for you.
Dude, seriously.
You are my workhorse.
Yeah. I pay for this. What the fuck?
Yeah, you don't get to yell at. But I didn't have that level of audacity back then.
Yeah, that's fair. No, as a person who's perpetually late, I feel that.
Yeah.
I really do.
And he yelled
some-
at me once about it, and it was traumatizing, and I've never been late to anything again.
Really?
Yeah. I actually have extreme anxiety about being late to places.
I have the anxiety. I do nothing about it.
Oh, okay.
yeah. It's there, and I'm like, I'm gonna be late. I'm gonna be late. Guess I'm gonna be late.
Mine's like, I gotta be there. I'm like
Yeah.
driving, swerving through traffic and all
Uh-huh,
that to be 5 minutes early.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he always came across as someone who's very knowledgeable
Yes.
and he knows a lot about his field, who might not be the kindest person,
Absolutely.
but definitely cares in a way that he wants to impart knowledge onto his students. That's the vibe I got from him.
That's a decent vibe. I also think he can no longer work in microbiology effectively.
Really?
Yeah, he, I think, was struggling with Parkinson's in some form or fashion.
I had no
He
idea.
washed his hands while he was streaking plates and things like that. He shook every single time. For microbiology, streaking plates and doing, test tube streaks and things like that are such a crucial role of it.
Right.
That I think he is now stuck in more of a lecture position.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Because that is his passion, and it really comes through in his lectures.
I really enjoyed his lectures. I remember so this was back in, I'm going to say 2017, 16. I don't remember, but I was in one of his, this would have been during my undergrad. And I was in his microbiology class. I had taken it over the summer. And so it was this like 4 hours of microbiology every day. And it was so rough. And I remember that I was in a group of people that like I now consider like good, close friends and all that. And we're listening to him lecture and all that. And then he's talking about like the different types of microbiology, one of which is the flea. And then he talks about the way with which a flea jumps. And it's a very specific mechanism that the flea has. And the mechanism is called the ratchet mechanism. And the whole class ended up bursting out laughing because this is the height of the word ratchet.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't understand. And it was that was the funniest part of it.
Yeah.
How do you explain to this old man what ratchet is? He's just like,
okay,
is it
boomer.
like a tool or like
You don't get it. So in this culture,
yeah. How do you explain that?
a bunch of white kids explaining. Yeah. I mean, as much diversity as Cape Girardeau attempts at, there wasn't.
Attempts is a word.
Yeah, there's not a tremendous amount of it in Cape Girardeau.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've once heard the term sundown town, which is are you familiar with that term?
I am not. What does that term mean?
That comes from generally like small rural towns that are mostly white and were some of the most intense Crow law type places
Okay.
that they would openly express distaste towards like minorities and towards like actively working against those kinds of people. And Cape is sundown town adjacent.
Jackson.
Yeah.
So
Jackson.
there's one nearby.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't it, but it has an element of it. And
We
some
had
people make their way.
In my graduating class, we had 3 black individuals, and everyone else was white.
Sounds pretty similar to where I came from.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jefferson County was not much different.
And then, I mean, a lot of people that still fly Confederate flags. Did you know that there is a poster? You can find it online. You can print it out if you want, hang it up on your wall. I don't know that you would want to.
Probably not. Yeah.
But the poster is for essentially letting you know, it's kind of a flyer, that there will be a slave sale on the house of the Jackson Courtyard steps. Slaves for sale on Jackson Courthouse yard steps.
Why?
They had to let people know where they can get them.
And you would do that in the town square on the
Yep.
courthouse steps.
Yep, right where law happens. There was also a battle of Cape Girardeau during the Civil War. Some people died. That's the most I remember about it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
learned about it in class.
Huh. That sounds like my time at SEMO.
The Battle of Cape Girardeau.
I remember I think if I battled with anybody there, it was financial aid.
Yeah. Well, you also struggled with financial aid during a
Yeah.
period of time, and we've talked about that a bit.
I lived in my car.
Yeah. While coming to my classes.
I
That's
did.
the part that
Yeah.
really gets me. Like, I was like, oh, hey, Eric's here.
Yeah.
He seems a little sleepy. Wonder what's going on with him. Oh, well, doodly doodly doo. Like,
And he was living in his car.
oh,
Yeah. It was I drove my home to your classes.
well, that actually makes me feel weirdly better.
Yeah. So I was at home.
Yeah.
No, it was fun. It was I couldn't afford, and you can understand this, like I couldn't afford to both go to school, focus on school, and rent a place out.
Mhm.
I couldn't, like, I don't know, rent. First of all, I didn't know anybody in that area, so I couldn't, like, rent it with somebody, which
Yeah.
is how you save a lot of money.
Yep.
But also there was, like, no give in my budget whatsoever. So I made the calculation. I said, okay, well, I can go to SEMO, but I can't afford to live at SEMO.
I could have gotten you a job at Domino's.
See, I could have done that, but at that point, I wouldn't have been able to focus on my studies.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. I mean, I struggled with that.
It's a hard balance.
Because, like, trying to work, and I had a significant other named Janella, and her and I were together on and off for 6 years.
Okay.
And I gradually had, like, separation from her as I gained more education, and she thought that graduating high school was hard. And, like, I would learn cool things. I would be like, hey, I learned this cool thing about immunology and all that, and I could not talk to her about it.
Oh, no.
And so we eventually had an educational gap. I fell out of love with her,
Right.
and we ended pretty badly.
Yeah.
I actually stayed much longer than I should have, because I just when I was going to break up with her, her house burned to the ground. Her pets all died. She had a bunny rabbit and a dog. They both died in that.
Yeah.
I was there, like, I had left class, came over, was like, I gotta retake this test, Dr. Champagne. And he was okay with it, to his credit. And showed up there. 11 fire trucks were there, because I guess it was a slow day in the fire department. And she had lost everything. And so I helped her, like, get together stuff. Her family wasn't very good with financials. So I made them a GoFundMe account, used, like, all this stuff to try to help them, bought, like, bare necessities items for them.
Yeah.
And because I intentionally kept the money from her mother, because her mother was like, oh, you got together $2,000. Well, we can get a new couch. And I'm like, oh, no. You don't even have toilet paper. Like, it's so I helped Janella shop and all that, but the entire time I'm like, I'm no longer into this person. I intended to break up with you. And so I made the mistake of staying too long in a relationship and all that. But for about a year, I lived with her in an apartment together, and then we separated, and I managed to live on my own for a period of time. But I was, during grad school part of it, losing money.
Yes.
Yeah. It is very difficult to be able to live on your own, to be able to work, and to be able to go to school.
That is such an intense juggle. Not even mentioning that you have no personal life outside of that.
Yeah. I never went downtown to drink and stuff like that. Who
No.
had time?
How
Who
could
had
you?
money? Yeah.
The business students.
Yeah.
That's who did. Those fucking MBA students. Anyway.
I remember a friend of mine. She was a varsity basketball player. She also maintained a 4.0, was a pre-med biology student. I forget. She
Okay.
pre-med's like half a thing. She went on to become a doctor. She's married to the man of her dreams. It's quite wonderful. She would be on the bus doing her homework and all that, and they'd be driving, to their next basketball game.
Right.
And about 30 minutes in, everybody else would be done with their homework, and they would start like being rowdy and stuff. And they would try to be like her, and they'd be like, "Oh, Connor, hey, what's up? You done yet?" She's like, "I've only just started." She's like, "I have so much homework. You have no idea what it means to struggle."
I will take on an immeasurable load.
Yeah.
You all.
She's one of the most impressive individuals I've ever met. Like,
Sometimes,
she managed to maintain that.
You come across those individuals and they're very rare.
Yeah.
They're very, very rare, but they are so hyper intelligent.
Yeah.
And I don't know what imparts that. Is it genetics?
I mean, probably.
It probably
maybe when
plays
you're
a role.
raised good, not like us. We're big old dummies.
Right.
We weren't raised good, nose. We don't know nothing.
No, it's just like, I think that there's an element of the intelligence that I do have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of it comes from genetics, because like my siblings also share that. So how much of a role does nurture have when it comes to obtaining information, or your ability to obtain more information?
When you're a baby,
Mm-hmm.
you are functionally a sponge. There's actually an abortion argument that when taken to its logical extreme, says that it's fine to abort babies up to 2 years old. The reason for that is, let me back that up for a bit. We don't care about cells. Like, that is objectively not what we care about.
Right.
You shed skin cells all the time and you aren't sobbing. If you're a guy, you shed sperm cells all the time. You are
all the time.
Well, if you're like me, you're sobbing, but for a different reason. So that being said, we care about something called personhood, like the things that make someone a person, whether that's, that they act like us, they think like us, they tend to, move the same way as us, this shared empathy with another person.
Right.
And that is what we care about. We actually care about it so much that we project it on to our pets. So like, you'll say like, "Oh, that's my kitty cat. Oh, he wants to be held." The idea of "he wants" is very like person based. So we care about a person, and them expressing that personhood is what actually defines whether or not, we express that as a being. Now, an ant is so far removed from a person that to say like an ant wants something, you're only talking about it in like an abstract way.
Yeah.
So then there's this argument that babies don't start expressing like personhood, that they are functionally sponges for 2 years of their life, that only then they start expressing, what it means we would think of as a person. However, that is not true, and any parent will tell you that's not true. It's also wildly controversial.
Right.
But that being said, I think that idea gets at something, that like that sponge period, because that's when you start distinguishing languages. When you are a baby, you have all languages. You can make any form and function of your mouth as possible.
Yeah.
But then you start narrowing it down to what you hear around you. Then you lose the phonetics that don't apply to your immediate surrounding environment. And so there's this noise that's in one of the languages called "hu," like that.
Okay.
It's almost like a Y and a TH kind of meet.
Okay.
And it's not very good for mics, but it's like a "hu," and we use it in I think in like Korean, because there's "shul." And all that, but like a lot of people can't make that noise.
No.
And that's a phonetics difference. So the phonetics is about the shape your mouth makes, and then those add up into something called morphemes, which is fractions of words. So like saying like ultramicroscopic siliconovolcanosis. So you can break that down into its individual morphemes. So ultra, micro, so very small, scopic, visible. So very, very, small, not visible to the naked eye. Silicono, which means silicon. Vulcan, which means volcano. Osis, which means the disease of. So this is a disease where they push, bits of silicon into the air. It gets into the lungs. It causes disease, and it comes from volcanoes. So that being said, you can break down words in their individual morphemes, and it's from there. So phonetics to morphemes to syntax, and so to grammar in general and how we think of sentences. But babies lose unused phonetics. They start developing morphemes, simplistic ones. Dad, da. So da is its own morpheme, and when combined, da. Yeah.
Damn it! I don't have an additional battery.
Uh-oh.
This is unfortunate. But that's okay. That's all right. I have 3 different cameras, so I'm sure I can make it work. But I feel you on the sports thing because I don't know why, but like as a man, people just assume.
They assume that you do sports good. Baseball,
they assume,
especially.
Yeah. But there's baseball, but football, right? Like my mom's
Cardinals are having playoffs today. I only know that because my friend canceled on me for our plans to go to Six Flags.
Shit.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. And living in St. Louis, everybody's always talking about Cardinals, the Blues. And I'm just like, okay, I know which one goes where.
Yep.
I know the slot it fits in.
I didn't know LGB for a while.
Right.
And then it got extra confusing because people were like, let's go, Brandon. And I was like, God damn it. Now I just learned let's go Blues. Don't do this to me.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say LGB and they're going to get mad.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't tell. Is this person like wildly conservative?
Yeah.
Or are they just a fan of hockey?
Did they mean to say LGBT?
That was what I thought for a while.
Yeah. Or are they Blues fans? Or
luckily, the LGBT community is weirdly supportive of hockey, so those things tend to overlap a little bit. So
okay. Wasn't it funny that St. Louis, their sports team is called the Blues? Like they all know we're sad here.
Yeah, I mean this is a bad time.
Our baseball team is called the Cardinals. Like it's time to fly away, bitches.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
No, it's and for a while, for a period of time, the Missouri, specifically Jackson, Missouri, was the #1 worst place to live with allergies in competition with New Orleans. Now it's moved to Scranton, Pennsylvania, which might make some Office fans.
I know. I was gonna say the Office.
Yeah. But for a while, this place sucked on like another level too. It's just a bad time. It's got boomer energy.
Dude, that sucks. But the sports gene skipped me. It skipped you.
Yep.
Why?
I guess I just didn't grow up. A lot of people, it seems like they have nostalgia with it, or they'll like do get together stuff like with their friends. So there's a social aspect to it. I often wonder, is it not necessarily about the sport? Is it about the things that support the sport? Like, this is my me time. This is where I get to have nachos and drink and have fun. Right. Like I could get into that.
For sure. It's on in the background.
Yeah.
But people are obsessed.
But they're also doing those other reinforcers like nachos and beer and things like that. They're sitting in their favorite couch. They're having a chill time. This is the time they've set aside for them. Like, this is special treat me time. It's Sunday.
Bond with other people and talk stats.
I fucking hate sports stats.
I mean, because like we both appreciate numbers.
Yeah.
Right. But don't fucking talk to me about somebody's batting average. Who gives a fuck?
I can't believe this is like your pet peeve also.
Yeah.
Because like they all I'm gonna do an impersonation of what stats people sound like. They all sound well, he's 3 in his last 17 for the last 4. And since then he's done 37 yards out of the last 47. There's not enough units.
Right.
They
what are you doing?
Put units. I can do ratios with you.
Dude, I can literally hear you, and I thought you were a sports announcer.
And they all have that like hesitation, but then followed by mass numbers.
Yeah.
4 in his last 36.
Yeah.
Like it's just like that.
Why are you truncating this? What are you saying?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
But then if you're a stats person, you're like, oh yes, 4 in his last 30, he should be 7 in his last 36.
You're like, right?
Yeah. And then the fantasy football thing,
yeah,
it's like you're trying to play D&D, but with a thing I don't like.
Yeah,
You've tainted what I enjoy. Don't do this to me.
And also, you set a scene earlier with the pizzeria.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say at that time, it's very clear that you have D&D experience.
So I have a D&D podcast. It's called Horizon Adventures. It's about 4 college students on a tour of a scientific facility that are thrust into the D&D world, where they have to fight things like goblins and ooze monsters and dragons and weird jelly men and things like that. It's about these people on a quest to find their family and get back home.
This is an interesting concept, actually. And how different is it to have a D&D podcast distinct from your Science Snacks podcast?
Well, the fun part is that most of us on the Horizon Adventure podcast have like a science background.
Okay.
In fact, there's me and one other guy, and then 5 women. All of us all have science backgrounds. And even the other guy, he ended up working in like solar panels and stuff like that for a period of time. So he knows all about the solar panels and things. So that being said, like, I take things from like my personal experience working in scientific facilities, and then I just twist them and make them fun. And so like, there's this whole hidden background where they've walked through what is functionally like a Bayer or a Pfizer or some other large facility, and they've stumbled into a room they shouldn't have been, and you're portaled. And there they discover that they have new powers and things associated with their D&D characters, which is actually their majors. So we have like a girl who's a pre-med major who's got cleric healing powers and stuff like that, or like farmer ag boy who then is a druid and can turn into his animals.
Do you take this? Okay, so I guess a couple questions. First, so you're basically recording the set that you guys all have that you share.
It's all audio.
Okay.
And so what we'll do is like we'll go on Discord and we'll record for however long we need to.
Right.
Usually around 2 to 3 hours, and then I chop that down into about an hour of podcast.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then so everybody basically, this is like a podcast with like 7 other people.
So 2 of our people, Peyton and Katie, they play roles as like voice actors in the beginning and end of the show. And then so we have me as the dungeon master, and then 4 active players.
Okay, cool.
Peyton plays the voice of Horizon Scientific's HR department, who will do everything from like tell you to make space for the trucks coming through the secret tunnels that are carrying, hazardous materials and things like that. Little bits of lore hidden inside with her HR announcements.
Okay.
And then Katie is kind of a hidden thing in the back of the podcast to make you listen to it all the way at the end. But she is functionally a very high up person in Horizon Scientifics, who is like, you get to see her go from like being a character who started out there, doing the same tours, interviewing the same way that they would, had their thing not gone awry. And, the whole premise is like college debt has gone out of hand, and now you have corporate sponsorships to go to college. And this is like in the near future. And so all it is, you take your normal college classes, but you take one extra class that like corresponds to them. And it has a tour piece at the very end that you have to attend to get the full scholarship. And the idea is that the company gets kind of first dibs on you to have an interview with you and offer you a job out of college,
which
most people view as like, okay, cool, I'm guaranteed a job out of college.
Right.
Whereas, the company views it as making sure that their labor force keeps coming. And,
that is actually a really cool idea.
Yeah. And so that's the the overall premise.
Yeah.
And this Horizon Scientifics company is like this new up and coming scientific facility. They made like crazy progress with a handful of drugs and have now is expanded into other things, but they ran into a problem that actually Pfizer has right now, or at least did about like 6 months ago, and is currently still kind of dealing with, which is manpower problem, because we made new mRNA technology and now we don't have enough people to do that mRNA work. And so it was a temporary period of like manpower problem. Well, what if you're making such astounding innovative progress at such a rate that manpower becomes a real issue, to the point you are like essentially grooming kids out of college to come to your facility? And so that's the extension of it. But these are just kids that have gone to college. They're doing the same thing. Well, Katie plays a character at the very end who is gone through everything that they have, but then ends up as you see her kind of turn dark and progressively more and more in line with company values of science and progress at any cost.
I love this idea.
Yeah. It's pretty fucking compelling story, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, just and you created this premise.
This is completely me.
Where did you get the idea for a company sponsored education?
I was thinking about the fact that like I left college owing $48,000
right
in student debt.
Well, because like a company has a vested interest in doing that.
Yeah,
they sometimes have tuition reimbursement. Why would they not do that? I mean, that just seems like the logical
and if they
next
could
step.
gear your classes or your path towards like whatever benefits them, like, okay, you want to do this, we'll take these specific classes, and here's an extra class that's kind of about us and where the world and research is currently at. Like, I would have done this.
Totally, 100%. Like, I would have signed up. I would have said, okay, I'm going to work at Fritos, and I'd show up to class every day with a Fritos shirt. And they're like, oh, don't fuck with the Fritos guy. Like, they judge you based on the.
So anyways, you want to hear some secrets about Horizon Adventures?
Sure. Yeah. Because if you're willing to give them.
We're about 20 episodes ahead in recording, because, you know, I've been prepping for moving and everything like that. And it takes forever to nail down audio.
God, yeah, you're telling me. Like, I keep this as low production as possible.
Yeah.
So I could just like spit it out there, because if I had to hold on to this, I would never make any.
Well, I have to add sound effects, music. I have to align people's stuff. I've actually found a way to make it faster, where I just compress everyone's audio into one thing. There's less control, because I initially had everyone as separate tracks. But you know, if someone makes a noise or something like that, I won't be able to, you know, weed it out. But so the idea is that the facility, the room that they found, it has like this glowing floating cube inside of it. And all their family members, who are all to some degree trained on how to deal with that, because they've all kind of gone through it. They all work at the facility. That was one of their character premise creations, except for one of their friends, who's named Devin, is a character that I play, who's Morty adjacent. It's me, Devin. Hey.
I wonder where you got that inspiration.
He actually is like super into drugs and like all that. And they thought, oh, you know, Devin gave us drugs before. So they run into this room, their family's screaming. This cube is like spinning on a pedestal. It kind of looks like a tesseract or something.
I was going to say,
except I imagine it as more like a purple thing with rounded corners, but that's a me thing. And that being said, all their family is like screaming as like it's overwhelming the room. There's electrical sparks shooting out from everywhere. They all run in through this door, and suddenly they're floating through this blue void headed towards bright light, and they're all separate from each other. They are alone. It's very much like what I imagine doing the floating thing would be like.
Full circle.
And so they end up like, you know, floating through that for what feels like forever. And it's like this surrounding them, like kind of like an electric blue cave.
Okay.
Floating through it endlessly. And eventually, you know, you get, you know, bored. You try to reach out, you touch the side of it, you know, you spin, you do your things, and it feels like forever. And then suddenly you start hearing these noises that sound like ghostly singing. And then you're going faster and faster towards this bright diamond light at the very center. And then they arrive, and they're in the same room. But as they open the door, there's a creature standing there that is a goblin. And then they have to deal with the fact that there's a goblin with a bow and arrow pointed at them. And so they go through these adventures, various different things, experiencing the world, trying to hunt down their family and all that, with this premise of almost a scientific, the cubes are nodes of like sound, and from the very center of the universe, this is a secret for those of you who are listening to this, from the very center of the universe there is a creature that is singing, and that singing gives life to the universe.
Oh wow.
And every single one of those cubes is a node that can tap into that singing. So what Horizon Scientifics was doing was using that node as cheat codes to try to get new scientific endeavors, new things to understand about the universe.
Okay.
So they were accessing things for not only like cybersecurity developments, unhackable computers and things like, because they're computers made with nothing that the world's ever seen before, new drugs because they're now understanding biochemistry from a different perspective, and those types of things. So these nodes can also be used to travel to other nodes, because when you think about how a wave works, that's the point of contingency. That's where things are stable. So then they arrive at a world that's closer to that sound and that music, and that's where magic can happen, because now you're closer to that noise, and so now the world works a bit different. You can cast fire out of your hands and things like that, whereas Earth is much further from it. And so with that in mind,
that's a really interesting perspective. Yeah.
And so with that in mind, there's also this creature which is it wants absolute silence. It's destroyed by the noise. It covers its ears and all that. So as part of the story, one of the characters has died and then been resurrected by this character, and the character only asks that when given the opportunity that you free it. And they'll meet these people that are called the dissonant. So there's the silence character who ultimately would mean absolute destruction of the universe. Then there's these people called the dissonant, where they want silence, but in a different way. Because when we think about waves, you can have additive waves and all that. Well, they want dissonant waves.
Oh no.
So they make noise that can kill or stretch or mutate the world around them into a different way that's not the way it was originally meant to be.
Have you explored music theory? Because it sounds like, given that you have
I was in choir for a while.
Gotcha. I'm gonna take a guess and say that you were either baritone or bass.
I was tenor for a while, and then I shifted to a baritone. Yeah.
Okay. All right. As a bass, I can support the baritone. I don't know about the tenor. They're kind of like front men,
I mean, listen, the tenors were lacking.
Okay.
And no one wanted to be a tenor. And I could go into my falsetto and I could play there because I can do voices and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it was not comfy for me, and it was very painful. And then when my allergies kicked in, I couldn't sing. It was so frustrating. And there was this guy named Trevor next to me, and something about our voices, they were dissonant. They clash. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways. Well, that's some of the premise of Horizon Adventures.
That's a good plug. Yeah. That's an excellent plug, because I feel like you really brought me into that world there. And not to mention, I'm also picturing your face against this background of the planet, and I'm on the moon.
True, yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
It's very space and other world kind of themed. And they're dealing with the fact that this world is a bit newer, and there's things they come across something called a renabit, which is a rhino looking rabbit, and it tries to kill them. And it has a predator prey relationship to them and all that. It works with another creature in a symbiotic relationship to try to get them. And it's very interesting to try to take a world that you're not familiar with and then make predators in that world. Yeah.
How would this new world work? And I think that's a really interesting premise, because you look at an atom, right? And on the different shells of the atom, the electrons are much different. The valence electrons controls all of chemistry.
Absolutely.
Right? So what it means to be an electron is completely different depending on what wavelength you're on.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super neat.
And like if you're starting with like kind of a bigger and more wild premise of like, okay, there's this singing person at the center of the universe, like, and we know that like music, the noise of it's going to travel, this person hears it less, this one hears it more.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And like how does that manipulate the world around you, and if creatures are against that, what do they do and how do they try to go about silencing that?
In the universe,
Yeah.
the one song.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The song has layers. So like the idea is that you as a person have like many facets about you, and each of those facets have like different notes associated to them. So like when I have a character, that character might be a chord of C, and then another character might be a chord of E minor, and another character might be an F, and all that. So the idea is that all four characters, when played together, are the four chords that you need to play any song.
Nice. That's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's but like every aspect of the world is shaped around this musical idea, and I think it really plays well in audio.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea. This is a cool program. You can fuck around with a MIDI. I'm sure you could do the exact same thing on GarageBand, but I don't know. I kind of like it. I enjoy messing with this audio interface. Which one do you use?
I use one very similar to this for GarageBand.
Yeah.
I do that one for Science Snacks. I use Audacity for Horizon Adventures.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a good one. Audacity is excellent for being like free too. Yeah.
It just doesn't have as much like music production stuff, but I always have my laptop. I can, throw up I have a little MIDI piano, and so I can like play whatever I want with that.
Do you have the Artura? I think that's one I've got.
The video is getting too large to say that's a single file. Just popped up.
Yeah. That's too bad. Looks like I hit my storage requirements on my tablet, which is perfectly fine. That's the backup.
Yeah.
Which it looks like I might need, but we'll see. Wait, hold up. The main camera went out and the backup went out.
Well, you have the phone.
I swear to God. Let me at least make sure that saves.
Cool.
All right. Fantastic. Because otherwise, if all of my stuff goes out, which if you've recorded something live, something always fucking happens.
Everything, yeah.
Every single time.
I was going to make fun of you for this, but I'm like, no, he's got a point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. You can tell I've been scorned in the past.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
Any other topics for me?
I know. Do you have any topics for me?
I feel like we've been doing a fun back and forth.
Yeah.
We talked about not only where you're going, but your past. We've talked about like your significant other or lack thereof now.
Yeah, that's true.
And all that.
Single.
Ladies. You always got to make it weird.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, no. And talked about both education and work and stuff. I don't know. What do you think about martial arts? You want to keep doing martial arts?
Martial arts are really cool. I wish I were in the position to where I could make time every week dedicated to it. I just don't. But I think the idea of it is fantastic because it's a discipline that allows you to combat your ego constantly. Mm-hmm. Because you don't necessarily feel it build all up at once, but there's a lot of tension in your body that's released by physical activity or some martial art. And when you engage in that process, it's almost like this dissolution of ego where instead of feeling like pent up and feeling like you have to get stuff out or react negatively to a situation, you're just a lot more calm. Yeah. It's this wave of like, I know that's happening, but I don't need to react to it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there's that Zen state that's achieved through martial arts that I really admire. And I think at some point in the future, I would have a weekly practice, if not like multiple times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing martial arts, probably Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And my brother's getting very much into it. I have an older brother, younger brother too. But my older brother, he's getting very much into Krav Maga. How do you feel about that?
Okay. So we talked about you talked about a lot there. So
Sure.
I will finish this thought with talking about Krav Maga.
Yeah.
So martial arts, I think, obviously comes in a variety of different flavors, but
Sure.
beyond just the martial art itself. So there's a handful of problems in martial arts, and that in part comes down to the mysticism associated with martial arts, that like a lot of people have put a lot of emotional weight and talking about like control and discipline and all these kung fu panda ideas. For me, when I taught people how to kick, I taught people how to punch, I taught people how to throw, things like that. And there's Diamond Dave, who is an old YouTube star, who used to say, "Don't go ninja in somebody who ain't need to be ninja'd." And he was the hillbilly ninja. And I like that as far as like philosophy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of philosophy that you can get into. There's Officer Miller, who has a book called Meditations on Violence, where he was in a position as a parole officer where he was in fights basically every single day. And he's a black belt martial artist who, you know, fought everyone from like, you know, people armed versus not. And there's some fun dynamics that he talks about. One worth mentioning is like, he talks about this chart. So if you think, okay, well, I have classic back fist side kick combo. So first and foremost, like, what is my distance? How much time do I have? And what is the measure of force that I am permitted to use at this time? And so if I'm in tight quarters, well, back fist side kick might not work. You need some space for a side kick. If I need, you know, to bring someone down without hurting them, back fist side kick will not work because that will hurt them. If I need to kill someone, back fist side kick will not hurt. So already we're looking at like places where an iconic combo in striking arts can't be used. And he has some interesting thoughts on meditations on violence that's worth looking into. But there's a lot of emotional weight that people tend to put on martial artists. I've even seen a video of a guy crying over the fact that he was like pretending to be a martial artist, and this like experiment to see, could you determine if someone was a martial artist just based on their techniques and all that. And he like tapped out. He was like, you know, I respect you guys too much and all that. And I'm like, ease up. I just, you know, went to what is functionally like Boy Scouts for 13 years. Like it is, I teach people how to do physics things that I think are cool, and whatever extra you put on that. There's a lot of weird mysticism. And then when you don't have the mysticism with it, which you get from like generally traditional arts and all that, then you have a fixation on non-traditional arts of hyper athleticism that I don't think is right either. That, you know, you have to be a top tier competitive athlete with abs of steel and, you know, astounding cardio to even be good at martial arts. And that's also incorrect.
Yeah, seriously.
There is a level of nuance and skill, and, you know, Hapkido, there's a joke that you can't really be a Hapkido master until you're at least 40 years old, because that's where like you stop relying on strength. And strength is a crutch for technique. So if you have bad technique, you'll utilize strength.
Yes.
And so that all being said, I think there's a lot of problems in martial arts, but I still want to continue doing martial arts and refining down what I think is good and bad. I've worked with people that like, I only learned one good thing during their class. And I worked with an Olympic Taekwondo guy who I thought was absolute trash. He was bad, but he did a movement drill that I use to this day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But so going to Krav Maga with what we've talked about.
Sure.
Krav Maga suffers from a handful of problems.
Okay.
The first is if you do tried and true Krav Maga, like actual Israeli military martial arts Krav Maga. It is an anti-terrorism martial art designed to counteract Palestinian terrorists. So when they fight with absolute confidence that they are going to kill. So, and they do not stop. They keep weapons between them. It is another eclectic art, but this one designed purely for absolute lethality. So if you're doing that, and Uncle Bob gets drunk at the family reunion and he says, you know, I'm going to wrestle with you and all that. And you stab Uncle Bob to death 43 times. Like, obviously there's a problem. What you might find embarrassing is that you might realize like, oh, none of my techniques are applicable. Like you stop mid punch of him, are about to break out your karambit and, oh, wait, no, I can't karambit Bob. And so then Bob beats you and you think, oh man, well, what good is martial arts?
Right.
But it's good within its context. Now, you also have this problem of Americanization, monetization, businessization of martial arts, where I went to a karate school I actually really liked, like the instructor and all that, and they wanted $2,000 a year for their classes. Whereas I was used to martial arts at $35 a month. Yeah. But the guy had like where he set people up on contracts and things like that. And it wasn't even for that many classes, but I liked their techniques overall. It felt very similar to Taekwondo and was working with them and doing karate. It was very upsetting to see something, so held back by money and then rank and things like that, people paying for belts and being able to open schools. Oh, I worked with Gracie once. And so now I'm a Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school owner. So anyone can open schools. And so the problem with Krav Maga comes from not only the monetization of it, that they hype it up, they also have open schools and businesses that aren't really representative of the arts. They're usually representative of some level of kickboxing skill, usually some kind of Muay Thai or off-brand Muay Thai that people do for MMA, and then some jiu-jitsu. And they go to those, and that's not at all what Krav Maga is, but yet they open schools off of that. And then, if you are really practicing it, you have the problem of absolute lethality. So that's my Krav Maga hot take for you. It's a bit more in depth than Aikido, which is absolute trash.
What are they going to do about it?
Eventually, Steven Seagal will die, and so too will its art.
This wasn't created by Steven Seagal, was it?
No, but he's the big hype man for it.
Yeah. Gotcha. I think they like it because they want to passively, take your punch and redirect it.
Yeah.
There's some Zen mysticism there.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to know how to block.
Yep.
It's good to know how to get away from danger.
Mm-hmm.
Though you can't exactly eliminate a threat.
Well, their goal is to take down an opponent without harming them. It was originally meant for, like police to use and things like that. But what they found out in Austrian prisons is that prisoners were more than happy to let you break their wrist in order to get a few punches off. Whereas Hapkido has a bit more, kind of Aikido's older, harsher Korean brother has a bit more of like absolute control. Like, your wrist will break when I tell it to, and all that. And there's more control of the individual. Whereas along with that, Aikido tends to throw along the ground, parallel with the ground, whereas Hapkido tends to throw into the ground. Yeah. When I was teaching, I had a student named David who he had a friend at school who said, "Oh, I could beat up your instructor. Aikido is absolute trash." And I was like, well, I agree with him. Aikido is absolute trash. I don't know that he wants to play the I can beat up your instructor game. That's a weird one to play. But but then also we don't do Aikido, we do Hapkido. And he goes, "Oh, I didn't know that. I thought he was just mispronouncing Hapkido." I'm like, no, they are two wildly different arts, and far too many people associate them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They have enough similarities in what they, from the outside observer, might see, but how they are performed and what they do are wildly different.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I know so many people that are like, "Oh, I love Aikido." Or Aikido, some of their techniques are designed like someone's swinging a sword at you. How do I like disarm someone of the sword? But anyone who's good at sword is going to kill an Aikido practitioner.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is very true. And I only know this because I recently did the little foam sword fights with somebody who was very good with sword wielding, and you couldn't even get close to the person without being tapped. It was insane. So well, it is harder to swing a metal sword.
Yep.
I'll give them that, but you don't want to play those odds.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, any good swordsman is never gonna like take their tip off of you. Like they're going to keep their tip aligned with you, all that.
Right.
So this idea of like, oh, he's gonna do this big swing down at me, and then I'm going to, you know, take him and throw him and all that, never gonna happen.
No.
Yeah. But they live in this world of fantasy and mysticism, so much so that some of them convince themselves that they can do no contact fighting, where they believe that they can throw chi balls or move in a certain way that makes the opponent throw themselves and all that. It's absolute trash, and it just like promotes more trash.
Right.
And it's weirdly culty that they can brainwash even themselves into believing it.
It does have a religious aspect to it, if you think about it. And I think that there's an entire YouTube page dedicated to like fake martial arts.
Well, there's an entire Facebook page. It's called Bullshit Martial Arts, and I am a part of it. So you can find me on that page. I'll usually be making fun of things.
McDojo.
McDojos.
It's bad, but it's so bad. It's so omnipresent that it's cliche.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. So Taekwondo is one of those arts that like it's been McDojoed so much that like usually you'll have small, generally like leaner females that are able to, you know, kick above their head, and they tout those as like, oh, hey, here's some great martial artists and all that. They don't necessarily have a whole lot of force, but you know, they have a lot of flexibility and all that, and you know, a lot of hip range. And then they will put those at the front of their school and be like, you can be like this and all that. But like to teach you tried and true techniques that are practical, they will never do that. And Taekwondo is sadly one of those that has become that way. Now, everybody likes to think that they learn from a good instructor and all that. But like, you know, when I go to tournaments, I do well. And that is all that I know. I don't want to say I learned from the best. Like I just know from my experience, I do okay.
That's true. That is true. And you have to look at that as like data points.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know for a long period of time, the also painful part of like traditional martial arts is that it's like an exponential curve, that like you don't grow a lot during the first sometimes 2-3 years. Like a white belt could probably still fight you fairly for the first 2-3 years. But then after that, it's a fairly sizable growth curve. Whereas, you know, you go to a boxing class, you leave knowing how to punch. You go to a kickboxing class, you'll know a round kick. You know, you go to an MMA school, they'll teach you a triangle choke and things like that. Like whether or not you can actually, you know, utilize those things, well, they'll put you in a cage and you'll get some cage fighting experience. And, you know, there's, I think, a bit more linear of a growth curve there. So
I think too, when it comes down to like free rolling, I think at that moment you realize like, I might have just drilled that one thing like 43 times, but that has completely now left my brain. And now I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know where to put them. What is the goal?
No, and so I always have to remind myself of like what the because rolling is ultimately a chess game. It's the most chess game form of fighting. When you start getting into weapons work, that's a bit more of like a music game, weirdly, because you have to keep in tempo. And there's this whole like Balinese HEMA style premise of like when you break tempo is when you can get stabbed, or, you know, things like that. It's very, very interesting, of like a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing, back and forth. And that to disengage is to break the tempo, but to engage is to break the tempo. And what you really need to do is 1, 2, and 3, things like that you have to work within the tempo. But with rolling, the thing is like, I know that like I'm going to start outside of his legs. I'm going to maybe end up within his legs. I need to move out of one of the legs. I need to start closing in, eventually get on top of him or to the side of him, things like that. That you have this progressive forward motion. Whereas with on bottom, you, let's say, are starting in the worst position. You know that you need to get your knees out from under him. You need to get knees between you and them, need to get feet between them, and then start to take over and maybe even switch the game around. But I always have to like consciously remind myself, okay, which part of this game am I at? Okay, this one. Okay, next I need to move the leg. Things like that.
Yeah.
It's very linear for me.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. I don't know how long we should go with this. Given that it is 3 hours in,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should just cut it off there.
Well, hey,
What's
Eric, thanks for having me on. I
Thank
appreciate
you for
it.
being on, Eric. I appreciate that. You've taken time out of your schedule right before you leave.
Well, man, I got to make time for the people that matter, the important people.
Man, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But, to give a shout out to the stuff that you're working on
Mhm.
and, where people can find you, I'll leave the floor for you.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Horizon Adventures, a D&D podcast, which is available on Anchor, Spotify, or wherever you may get your podcasts. Same thing for Science Snacks. It'll say like Science Snacks by Eric or whatever. Exact same thing for that one. And then also, if you want to follow me on TikTok, I have a martial arts page called Easy Karate, which its premise is exactly what I talked about earlier, that karate is too mystified and like, let me just show you a round kick.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of my stuff.
Nice. Fantastic. And I'm sure my stuff is going to be in the show notes as well. So absolutely. Eric Miller, thank you so much for coming on.
It was a pleasure.
And when you move to Massachusetts, I will miss you.
Oh, I'll miss you too. And we'll still be able to do stuff just virtually.
100%.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
This fucking thing.
Oh, man. You don't have a spare battery for it? You're not playing it for 3 hours?
I think what really should happen is there should
You need
be
a
like
cord.
you should be able to plug this in.
Or you
Or you should be able to plug it in.
Where's the plug-in for it?
You can plug it into the computer,
Mm.
but
I'm honestly
it doesn't power it,
I'm honestly surprised you don't like directly live stream to your computer and pick it up there.
Yeah, that would be. I have a capture card for that,
Hmm.
and that might be something in the future that I do. Let me just save this really quick.
It's a good looking camera. Like it looks like what the professionals use.
Hopefully, one day I can get a couple of them, and I can figure out actually how it works. All right, and then I think we're still on YouTube. Oh, dude, look at that. We got some money. Cool combo.
Oh,
All right,
nice.
thanks, Daisy. We appreciate
Bye.
you. All right.